Treasure the experience. Dreams fade away after you wake up.
How can something fade away if you don't have them in the first place?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cheap Seat Critics podcast. And today we are covering Your Name. But first, hello, everyone. I'm one of your hosts, a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks. And hey, if you're listening from, maybe our audience is from Japan. That's cool. If you're listening from Tokyo right now, you can find us on TikTok, Twitter, or X, or Blueski, Facebook, Instagram. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce these in Japanese for you. We also got a visual site on YouTube and Rumble, if you're interested in that. But we got tons of audio platforms where you possibly could be listening to right now. We also have a LetterBoxd if you're interested in our average out graphs and ratings and everything like compiled into kind of like an average out score.
Yeah. Your Name. I figure,
It's Sprinks.
yeah. And
Was that the question?
No, of course not.
Of course.
Uh, no, but it was it's been a while since we covered Weathering with You, and I think it's been a while since we covered another anime movie, and that is usually my jam as a hobby off the podcast. And I figure I'd pick one of a director we've already covered from Weathering with You. So I'll jump into some facts here. Or should I do histories first, gentlemen? What are you feeling today?
I'm feeling that whatever
Uh,
you say is the right answer to go with.
all
I was
right.
very close to what I was going to say.
Yeah, all right. I'm gonna put the point of choice on the host, I suppose. Should be used to it by now.
Host card.
Uh, yeah, pretty much. It goes back. It goes both ways, though. All right. We'll do histories actually. Crimson, why don't you start?
All right. So I have seen Weathering with You for the podcast, like probably almost 2 years ago at this point.
Over 2 years
That
ago,
was one.
actually.
Yeah, it was one of our early ones.
It
It
was
was
number
like in the
28.
20s. Yeah. So a while ago. As for Your Name, I didn't know anything about it other than writer reference that it's like in the same universe, but not like directly connected. Uh, and that was it. I saw no trailers. I didn't know what it was about, so I saw it once for the podcast.
All right. I feel like it's going to be a familiar sentiment. Sprinks, go ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be similar. The first time watching Your Name, never seen before. I have heard of it. Um, Weathering with You, seen once for the pod. After watching this, Your Name made me want to watch Weathering with You again because it's part of the Disaster trilogy. Um, and it's just an interesting cleverness, of course, by Sly Fox writer that not only did we watch Weathering with You as the second in the trilogy before Your Name, which I feel like would change my score of Weathering with You, uh, but it's also in the vein of Weathering with You was our number 28 coverage, and then Velma season 1 was number 30, but now we have Velma season 2 being 132 and Your Name being 134. So both interesting timeline that they're both two off. And it
Yeah,
just feels
I
like it
like
was
my
toyed
symmetry.
that
What could I
way.
say?
But that's my history. And I've not seen the third one of the trilogy.
Yeah. If it makes you feel any better, Springs, I also watched this trilogy completely out of order. I watched Weathering with You. That was my first one of the Disaster trilogy that I saw for the podcast with you guys. And I watched the third movie, Suzumi, last year, and then came back around to watch this one for the podcast.
Oh, so this is all first times?
Uh, Pretty much, yes.
Cool.
I think so. I'm like 95% sure this is my first time. I think I saw a scene or two of this out of context, but I'm not 100% sure. But I think it's my first time all the way through. Uh, and I guess with that, we shall jump into facts. Like the rest of the sort of magical disaster thread trilogy that's going on, that may or may not be in the same universe, but everyone considers them to be a part of the same universe, is directed by Makoto Shinkai, who's also the writer. This is based off of a manga, uh, which is unsurprising. A lot of anime adaptations are usually based off of either light novels or manga. Uh, the budget was 750 million yen, which translate to about 7.5 million USD. So very low budget, but it grossed over 405 million in the United States.
Whoa, it's pretty
Yeah,
big.
How
so
does
Hiroshi.
American movies get bloated budgets like that? With
I
if this is 7 million, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. The most expensive Japanese film to date, at least far as I'm remembering, was Godzilla minus one, and that's sitting at about 20 million USD.
A budget, yeah.
Yeah,
But
which is
supposedly,
insane considering the amount of money it made.
what's the new one? I think it's Chinese and not Japanese. What's it called? Uh, Nikai or Niku? Nikai 2 or whatever, which is
Oh
now
yeah, yeah.
it just outbeat Infinity War, and it's like the highest
What?
animated film ever right now, or domestic
I've
grossed
heard of it, but I haven't seen anything about it, which is weird for that film being now the highest grossing movie of all time.
or animated of all time.
And highest grossing animated movie of all time. Uh, Your Name has received several accolades, including Best Anime Feature at 2016 Los Angeles Film Critics Association Awards, the 49th Siget Film Festival, and the 71st Manichi Film Awards. It was also nominated for the Japan Academy Film Prize for Animation of the Year, and it was the highest grossing animated film that was not a Studio Ghibli film until Demon Slayer, uh, Kimutsu no Yabai, came out in 2020. Uh,
Are you saying Demon Slayer was Studio Ghibli made?
no,
Okay,
but that was the Demon Slayer. I think is now the highest grossing animated Japanese anime film. That's not Studio Ghibli now.
I see.
Yeah. Uh, so I'll jump to some other fun facts. The red braided cord that Mitsuha wears represents the invisible red string of fate that is said to connect someone to their fated person according to Japanese tradition.
Yeah, didn't know that.
Which I think they I think they convey that fairly well for if you're not familiar with Japanese tradition.
I think
I guess
so.
with the braided cord, yeah. Yeah, this is the first. Yeah, read that one. Mitsuha's name means three leaves. Follows a family trait. Her grandmother Hitoa is one leaf. Her mother Futaba is two leaves, and her little sister Yotsuha is four leaves.
Hmm, interesting.
Mhm. Uh, Although Itomori is a fictional town, because surprisingly, I don't think we've heard of any comet strikes in Japan recently. But the majority of the town was based on an existing Japanese town of Hida,
Oh,
which is very
okay.
famous, like for its kind of traditional kind of way they hold on to culture and stuff like that
Yeah,
over there.
outskirts town. Yeah,
Yeah, in the boonies, as Taki said.
weird word to use,
Yeah, yeah, I
but it was
agree.
dubbed.
Yeah, we also watched the dub audience, so we're gonna watch the film too instead of not
It
just
could,
read the
you know what?
film.
That it's a good distinction to put out there because it could change potential um, context of wordings or cultural impact kind of things of scenes, depending.
Yeah. Uh, the Japanese band Rad Wimps worked closely with the director Makoto Shinkai on the script and story to create complementary music. The process of them working together led to the initial script changing.
Great. That's awesome.
Um,
Love to hear that.
yeah, me too. I love it when uh, art influences art like that. Some of my funnest facts are always related to that for me.
Yeah, but the pacing and everything's adapted to what's being told, and it's not kind of like out of sync kind of thing.
That's true. That also helps a lot. Uh, Actually, that brought up a topic conversation I'll say at the end of the facts now. But my last fact is I guess something to raise your eyebrows at, because of course this is the the this is usually what happens now to animated movies. A live action remake is in development at Paramount Pictures and Bad Robot.
Oh,
Oh,
So we
wow.
have
uh,
that to look forward to.
huh.
Well, I don't know if it'll
Paramount hasn't had a good track record recently.
Yeah.
yeah, but I think Bad Robot. I know who's connected to that. So lens flares up that wall.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, unfortunately, I connect Bad Robot now less to J.J. Abrams and more to Star Trek Discovery, not to the benefit of Bad Robot.
Oh,
Mm. But hey, we got Fringe and
Bad Robot
Lost, right?
makes yeah, and
That's true. We did
the
we did get
Mission
we did get
Impossibles.
some law. Yeah, that's true. Like I said, they're not all bad. So I honestly I hope for the best. I again, it just kind of ties back into I'm really starting to get weary of live action remakes of animated films because I think animated films can stand on their own as an art form.
Agreed.
Shockingly enough,
But
it's not it should not be a hot take.
I guess we'll see what happens with How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping that one's good. I'm kind of happy that I don't know if I might have stuff to talk about that with you after the podcast sprinks on that.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation.
It really is. It really is. And with that, we shall now dive into our coverage. Unless anyone else has any facts they would like to throw in.
Uh, you said you wanted to save something for the end of the facts section. Is that, did you want to do
Uh,
that?
I've already forgot. Damn.
Oh,
Ooh, lovely.
okay.
It's like you just
I
awoke
have
from a dream.
no facts.
I know. Yeah, it feels like that.
I have nothing else to
Uh,
add.
all right, then we shall jump in to our coverage. We are doing a loose act structure. Because of the nature of the film, we're going to be probably jumping around a lot more outside of acts than we normally might, but we're going to try to stay mostly confined to an act, but we're not going to begrudge each other for needing to jump out to reference something that will come in the future. Um,
Or
so
the
we shall
past.
start, or the past. But so we shall start with Act One, which starts from the beginning, shockingly, to the second montage, I believe, in the film, after Mitsuha and Taki realize they are switching places. And we shall start with Sprinks.
Oh boy. Well, let me just give an overarching whole film compliment. This is beautifully breathtaking animation. It looks so
It's
pretty.
top tier.
The landscapes
Yeah.
are so damn good.
Yeah, they knocked it out of the park. I can see why this was the first anime film not by Studio Ghibli to gross 10 billion yen at the Japanese box office.
Yeah.
It's
But what's weird
pretty
is I don't remember being this like swept off my feet with Weathering with You.
I was gonna say we did compliment a lot about Weathering with You, but looking at this is huge. And the
yeah.
opening with the comet through the clouds is insane. I'm definitely taking a screenshot for my wallpaper. Somewhere in there. I'm definitely gonna be doing it.
I couldn't agree more. I obviously I think one of the reasons that the difference is so like clearly distinct between the two, and we're gonna be praising the animation quite a bit, I imagine, for the rest of the film, is because Weathering with You is very much an urban story. Like you don't really leave the town much, so you don't get a lot of breathtaking like landscapes and uh
No, but you
overarching
get a lot of
views in this film.
nature. You get a lot of like
Y
rain and reflection.
Yeah, so I do think that this and the focus of the animation is much more distinct in this one because it's the landscape itself is kind of incorporated into like the story and the plot when they needed to find where he's trying to find out where the town is. So I
Yeah.
think that kind of helps with like their focus on that part of the animation.
Yeah,
Um,
and even on the poster, it's split between the two of them, where you can see the city and the outskirts, I guess. Of so the settings are pretty important in this as well, which
yeah,
gives a lot more chances for different visuals.
Yeah, it's just Weathering with You. All I remember praising, or I think my favorite shot in that film was like a water droplet on a windowsill or something.
I mean, you said something about that. I don't think you said
Yeah.
yeah.
that was your favorite.
I do
I
remember
think
you
it was a
saying something about that.
symbology thing you were talking about
Okay.
with
There was
it. I don't
something I
know.
talked about that.
Yeah, there's the imagery that stands out for me with regards to Weathering with You, and I guess we're going to be comparing them a lot because same director, same writer, same animation group. So, um, the in Weathering with You, the shots that stand out to me is one where she's I forgot the name of the main character in that film, but the one where she's standing on top of the tower praying for sunlight for the festival.
Yes.
Because I know there was that shot that I think that stood out to me. Uh, I do think the morning after with the glint on the city after the girl went back to be a rain spirit because the spirits came and took her away. So like the morning after where he's being chased by Mr. Floofy Hair through the streets,
Oh yeah.
very much makes the city kind of sparkle. So I tend to find those animation shots really are really nice, and obviously the reflections that we've talked about. Um, But yeah, I think also in a way Weathering You with You feels a little more claustrophobic because the rain and clouds make the world feel so much smaller.
Yeah, I can agree
Uh,
with that. It felt
I don't
less
know.
grand because all the scenes were like in alleyways or in buildings. It was rarely any open space in that movie.
Yeah,
Um,
the one of the first
like
openings.
being on
Sorry,
the cloud would was probably the most open
when they're
part.
falling. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think also the gates on the rooftop. There was probably a few shots in there where they managed to sneak in a little more of the landscape outside of obviously when the rains are gone.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anywho, pretty
Original.
animation.
Yeah, really, really pretty animation. So that's fair. I imagine, like I said, the comet shots as Crimson brought up, beautiful, and I agree. I want to get a wallpaper for it. And I guess I'll go to Crimson next.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the visual. No, there's a lot to say about it, but I'm not going to do that. I just I wrote, writer, how did you have two personal picks in a row with Twilight being mentioned? You had Guardians of Ga'Hoole, where one of the characters is named Twilight, and then you have the classroom scene where they're talking about Twilight.
Man, I don't know. Maybe I just really enjoyed shitting on the Twilight series that much.
Ryder is trying to find anything he can grasp straws at to give more to our Twilight community.
I'm doing my best. All right.
So yeah, I was like, wow, two in a row for his picks. Incredible.
Wait for next season, number 3.
I now I have to be careful.
It's a curse.
I know.
It's lingering.
I think I might escape it. I'm trying. I think I might because of my next picks. I think I know what they are, and I think I might escape it then, but we'll see. So was that your point?
Yeah, why
The,
not?
the Twilight
All right,
mention.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Twilight mention. Um, I will do the opening monologues of our two characters that pull us into the world because we see them experiencing the world at the same time. One before disaster, and one just kind of enjoying the overlooking view, as I think they put it in the dub. Um, and I think it does a good job of hooking us in to the not only the important plot device that the comet will serve, but also the two characters in their state of mind at the moment when they're sharing together unknowingly apart from one another.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can
and
go with that.
the
This opening monologue you're talking about is right before the opening credits, right?
Uh, yes.
Okay.
We do have an anime opening, which was unexpected for me because we don't really get anime openings much in films. But I think it's like the visual is the comet breaking above the clouds, and we kind of follow the piece falling through the clouds, and then we kind of see an overlooking view of Itamori, and then we get the narration.
Yes. Yes, I agree. I did like that. Showing both sides kind of thing. It did, being a Kingdom Hearts nerd, it did spark the whole shattered dream as like a far off memory monologue to me. But
That's fair. I think that's something they're trying to evoke here because of the, I guess, the importance of dreams to this story.
Yeah, and with the
uh,
title sequence, I was thinking they were giving us backstory on the characters during it, and then obviously watching through, it was showing stuff that had yet to come, like her doing the ritual with the drink, which I can't remember. I apologize in
sake
advance. I'm going to screw up a lot of names. I'm going to screw up a lot of
yeah,
like cultural words.
pronunciations.
yeah. The
It's
two main characters are Taki and Mitsuha.
I barely speak English well, so yeah, the sake that was in the title sequence of her doing the ritual. So I thought that had already happened, which I guess it technically kind of did, but
Yeah.
thought it was divorced. But it was a sneak peek, I guess.
Yeah, I think as well the first shots of the characters is actually them at the end going through their daily lives in Tokyo. Because I think if I remember correctly, Taki's dressed in a suit, and she's dressed up in her business outfit, like she's going to work in Tokyo as well, because obviously her home got destroyed.
Yeah. Um, I think it's just for me a cultural difference, but I didn't necessarily have a liking to the opening credits.
The anime opening.
Yes, I thought it was very television. And after finishing the movie, realizing that it's kind of essentially recapping kind of the essentially of the movie's premise, being not necessarily a backstory of the two characters, but like a future of what the story's telling. It seems unneeded. Not the music
Ye-
or the credits themselves, but what's being depicted in the credits.
Yeah, yeah. The anime opening, quote unquote, itself, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is actually something I'm gonna agree with. I don't know if it's a cultural difference because there's in Japan, as far as I remember, anime openings in movies is very rare. Like, don't get me wrong, the insert songs are always there. So, like the song that's plays here in the opening, I would expect to hear at some point during the story that's being told. But it's odd because it's an anime opening, which makes it feel more akin to like the TV genre of anime.
Yeah. Like this is like a continuation story kind of thing, or the next movie this will play again. It just felt very televised, in the sense of an anime. But I think to me would have like not necessarily fixed it, which is why I'm thinking it's a cultural difference because I'm sure. I mean, it's there for a reason. It's chosen for that way. But to me, if it was more world building of like location shots kind of thing, and showing like the side characters and the main characters just doing like mundane tasks kind of thing,
Mhm.
I think that would have worked well more for me. But it just felt off.
That's fair. Crimson, any thoughts on the anime opening?
I agree that it could be cut, trimmed, or just do like a title drop, kind of like a Scooby Doo 2, right? You follow the pterodactyl ghost, and the title Scooby Doo 2 pops up out of the smoke, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think they could just do a title drop instead of this anime intro, as, as you've coined it, or opening.
Yeah.
Like the
I'm in
ending
agreement.
title is what you wanted more
Ending title.
at the
Yeah,
end of the
where it
movie
was
where the
just the
title just
natural your
pops.
name in this clouds. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would suffice. Yeah,
Out of curiosity, for you, Springs, did Weathering with You have an anime opening?
I don't recall. No.
I don't remember one.
Because I'm
Alright.
sure it would have been a
Well,
discussion point.
yeah, I'm saying because you rewatched it before the film, right?
I did not
For
know. I said I wanted to. I didn't have the
oh,
time
you
to
wanted
fill
to,
it in,
okay.
but after watching your name, I wanted to watch Weathering You again.
I see. Yeah. Um, that's fair. I can say with confidence that Suzumi didn't have an anime opening, and from what I'm getting, I can think of, I'm thinking about the Dragon Ball Z movies as well. I don't think at least the current one, the modern ones, don't have anime openings. They do have insert songs, but they don't have anime openings. So I think th- this is an outlier, even for uh, Japanese made animated films for having anime opening. I might be wrong about that, but that's kind of where from what I've seen as far as anime movies, I think that this is an outlier.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You've certainly seen more than I have.
Yeah.
I don't
Which
remember
is
one in Bell.
yeah, Bell
No,
doesn't have an
Bell
anime
just had the
opening, but
opening music number.
yeah, Bell has the opening music number which introduces us to Bell, the character and then the world of you.
Yeah.
Um so it's definitely interesting that they chose to do this, and I'm kind of in agreement because I think my usual objective issue with anime openings tends to come down to why are you spoiling the movie or whatever the show is with your opening. Um, though, like I said, the purpose for that is the same reason they give their animes really absurdly long titles, like the former assassin became a cook kind of name. Uh, They'd use anime openings and titles as a means of trying to draw on audience members and trying to show off what the story is going to be about. And I don't know. Again, it makes more sense for shows to do that than films, which is why I still think this is might lean towards being an objective problem with the opening.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Um, at least that's the cultural reason why they do it. They advertise their books with their titles pretty much, and the same thing with their anime usually.
Yeah. I mean, it would be weird saying this is based off of a manga. You said it would be weird for a couple pages of the manga are showing pages later in the book to spoil you as like its
uh,
opening that it's adapted off of kind of thing.
yeah, it maybe in that sense though it could be flash forwards to try and hook the audience. So like, there's always an element of you need to hook your audience that's being attached to something like that. Which is why, I'm usually forgiving of anime openings, even if it does tend to spoil stuff. But in this case, the question is more obvious as to why, because this is a movie. People have already paid to see it, you know? So and I don't know, unless the anime opening in this was used as a promotional, I don't see the need for it
Oh, you could
really.
could have been.
Yeah. So I'm leaning towards the agreeing with you guys, but I'm agreeing with you guys, but I also lean towards it being an objective problem, the anime opening here. It's not a huge issue. It's just more of a question of like why, you know.
Yeah.
I don't really question anime openings much because it's so common, but here it seems to be an outlier even to me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I guess for them being in shows, they kind of tip off what's to come in the show, so you stay invested. Like, oh, there's something cool in the opening. I wonder if that'll happen past the pilot. Uh, but you don't really need that for a movie because it's just one thing. There's
Yeah.
no hook to stay for a series. It's just the one thing.
And I do think this is something they learned from because Weathering with You and Suzume don't have anime openings. They have an opening song, but they're very they don't have anime openings. Like they don't have an opening montage. So, it's cool I'm happy they learned from it, but I just pointing it out here that I think it might be a confidence issue, possibly as well. But this is me ascribing motive onto the writer and stuff like that, and the creators behind it, because they're just used to their medium of art being in that format of needing an opening, so they felt compelled to include it. Um,
Possibly. I don't know.
Yeah. Uh, all right. And we'll go back to you, Springs.
Okay, it
This is-
it may have been more clear to the two of you, but I didn't. Unfortunately, I didn't like scrub back and watch it and try to figure out. But where when we see Mitsuha's body at all fondling herself, it's Taki in the body, and that's how we're introduced kind of the character of Mitsuha doing that at the beginning. So I'm like, I mean, so that's an implication that that's Taki in her body. What showed the stop or the change of Taki being out of Mitsuha's body to then have Mitsuha in?
Glad you picked up on that because I had the same situation where
Because it just kept going. I'm
I'm not
like,
even.
Taki wouldn't know what. I'm like, does Taki know how to braid? Does Taki know how to do the ceremonial dance thing?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So it's instant. So pretty much once we get to the mirror and we cut, we pretty much skip to the next day.
Oh,
Yeah,
so that whole
they were
breakfast
not they were not
is
they were not clear on the
Mitsuha.
time jump there.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay,
they
yeah, that was the same thing I had.
yeah, it's not a clear jump, but that is where it cuts. So the whole day is actually Mitsuha because she spends the whole day realizing she kind of forgot the day before. So we only see the start of Taki's first day having body swapped with her, and then we see her reacting to the world around her
Yeah.
with the missing day and everything like that.
Okay, that makes sense. Just also, not, being a first time going through it kind of thing of saying you acted differently the previous day could be in my mind like reacting or just like acting differently of not Taki in control, but Mitsuha herself in control, and what they're seeing currently is the norm. Because then it plays off like how long has this been going on kind of thing.
Yeah. Um.
So it does have
So
good. It adds good mystery and confusion, but it's just unclear when that swap occurred on this day.
yeah. Well, like I said, uh the swap is off screen. It's when they go to bed, right? So
Yes, but nothing implies that after the mirror changing of Taki seeing naked Mitsuha in the mirror, that the next breakfast scene is
is
now Mitsuha.
Mitsuha. Yeah, I agree. They could have been clearer with that. It definitely adds you, as you say, to the mystery of everything and the intrigue, but it was very unclear. I actually was confused and rewound a bit because I'm like, oh, and then I realized
Yeah,
what they did.
because I went with when Mitsuha isn't talking for the first time, trying to figure out how to get to school and runs late. It's like, okay, that makes sense. You don't know where you're going. But as Taki is Mitsuha, I was thinking with the two friends, Teshi and is it Hitori?
Zaya. Yeah,
Oh, is
I wrote it Zaya. The girl.
Zaya? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Zaya. It's like just following them, knowing where they're going, kind of thing.
Hmm.
And it also went with the dad telling Mitsuha, stand up straight, don't slouch, kind of thing. And I went, oh, well, then that plays into like talking, not knowing how to walk like Mitsuha. So I
Oh
thought
yeah,
that
because
played more into it.
you were still at that point thinking it was Taki.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess how does that change your view then,
Um.
or is
Not.
it just a pacing issue at this point?
No. It's just definitely on like a second watch through, knowing that now cut, I think that it flows fine and well. It does just bring up some questioning things that I guess just play into that like who's in control moment. Um, but I think the conversation with the friends of when you were acting or how you are today kind of thing helps.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just not
So
clear of
like,
the swap.
yeah, when did you, I guess, figure out that it was not Taki anymore?
Um, my real questioning thing was the whole braiding with the grandma and sister.
Okay.
And I went, I don't know if this is the same person, knowing all these routines, and then like cemented with the ceremonial dance like that night. I'm like, no way, this person learned that,
Yeah.
unless
All
it
right, that's fair.
it went into the question of like how long has this been going on? Because then it tied with the dream thing of like when you wake up, it's like my first impression watching this movie is when the dream sequence or that opening anime title was um Taki, I guess, or was so in the dream of what that life was, is that their body currently as Mitsuha is so unrecognizable. Or in the sense like Mitsuha is so unrecognized by the body that she wakes up in, being her own, which is why the fondling the boobs kind of thing. That's my impression of what was going on. Like so lost in the dream that reality is off.
Okay. That's all fair. I don't I don't really have any like I have no reason to push back on anything you said because I agree they could have been if they wanted to be more upfront about like when the swap happened. I think they should have been, but I'm
Yeah, because to me it was far more clear with Taki's. How it was like this is Mitsuha's like world and Taki in
yeah
control, but it's only for that very short morning, and then it's all Mitsuha. As for Mitsuha and Taki's body, is kind of the whole day.
yeah we stay with the whole day for Taki in Taki's body with
Yeah,
Mitsuha, which is
so it's
uh
unparalleled,
yeah
and it
they're
plays kind of
in
more that Mitsuha is more of the main character than Taki is.
at least in the first half of the film. um all right, Crimson, you got anything you'd like to add on to that? Because I know you mentioned agreeing.
I was starting to get a little lost in the conversation where it sounded like we were trying to retroactively understand what happened, and then it started to sound like you guys were thinking it during watching it. So I kind of lost track of what you guys were really referencing to yourselves. So,
I
Spranks, question I have for you, because that's where it's sprouted my confusion. Were you automatically thinking they were body swapping in this first introduction here?
No, I thought that the dream was something was up with the dream that it was so real and so like living in the dream that upon waking it was unfamiliar in the body. It's like Narnia kind of thing. Like you're in the wardrobe for so long that when you come out, you can't quite recognize your own body, and that's how I kind of took it.
Okay. I guess just some of the wording was sounding like in watching it, you were already thinking there was swapping happening here. But okay. You
More
just said something was off.
in the
Okay.
first day with Mitsuha, yes, something was off, and I thought it was more dream connected. When it went to Taki's side of the story of like Taki's life and Mitsuha's in the body, then I got more of a connection that they're connected
Okay. All
because
right.
it focused more
So
on
I
did I.
Mitsuha.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got body swapping pretty early. I realized it was body swapping when her friends were catching her up, and they were talking about they threw out like the joke of multiverse theory and stuff like that. But they realized that she was finding messages scrawled in her notepad and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, someone was in her bot. So I figured it out pretty early on when that there was body swapping going on. I just wasn't sure to the extent.
Gotcha. A little side
Um,
note of the note she found in her journal. I'll say the sub version doesn't have this. The sub versions, it's all in Japanese, all anything written like that. But I like the detail that in the dub, that anything to be translated is animated in the film in English to be read and not just a subtitle on the screen. I
they
think
do
that's
that
very
with
good.
yeah, they do that with most movies nowadays, which is very awesome, and I love that the fact that they do that because I think they did that in Weathering with You, and I know they do that with Suzumi as well. Um, and I know they do it for a few shows, but that are the I guess have a higher budget to do something like that. Because as you say, they're pretty much animated into the movie.
Yeah.
Um, I will jump to uh, Mitsuha getting kind of publicly shamed by her dad. Uh, Instantly, it tells you everything you need to know about their relationship going forward.
Pretty much.
Yeah, the
uh,
grandma plays more into the reason of the connection, but
yeah,
it is good.
later on anyway. For now, this is their relationship because we're not introduced to the grandma part of the relationship. So this is just all character building for what Mitsuha's life is like.
You understand there's friction, there's a disconnect between them, they're not close. The
You know,
father's
for the
strict with
breakfast,
her.
the father was not present.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So a lot in a very small amount of time to
yeah,
understand their kind of
yeah. And
dynamic.
what I like about that too is there's setup for this because in the breakfast scene we hear them talking about the mayoral election and then they switch it off to something else.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which you could be at first just take as them not wanting to listen to politics, but it has the reason of being they just don't want to hear about her father.
And to me, being that, uh, at that point, not knowing the connection, but the reason the characters swapped off the politics on the radio, I went, oh, that's got to be important. So I just wrote down mayor election will be held on the 20th of the next month, thinking that would be important somehow. It wasn't.
Yeah,
It
I
was
did the same
important, just
thing.
not in the way. It was important, but not in the way you thought it would be.
Yeah.
It's funny because you guys kind of got red herringed with that then because they immediately talk about the comet on the TV.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen during the elections.
Also, the name of the comet Tiamat is fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. I wrote down on my notes. I'm like, oh, that's terrible. I knew it was a bad omen from that point on. Uh, my familiarity with Tiamat is mostly due to other animes and stuff and fandoms that I'm a part of. But I know what Tiamat is, and it's supposed to be this world-eating monster demon thing.
Yes.
So, bad omen. Crimson, you're up next.
I'll praise the animation. So
Ooh.
I think they did a great job introducing 3D assets in this because most of the time it's really hard to catch. And when you do, it still looks very good. Because I know it's kind of notorious with some animes of just the 3D assets look horrible, right? Or out of place. But here, I think they did a great job. Like the hills on the train, I think is the most obvious use of the 3D. But I'm pretty confident uh, during the like ritual dance with the bell stick or whatever it is. um, we get the wide shot of the two friends watching, and I'm pretty confident that's 3D asset in there. The close
With them
shots
dancing?
are actual 2D, but yeah, but when we're seeing it from afar, pretty sure those are 3D assets.
Interesting.
Uh, that's very
So
cool. Yeah.
I think they do a very good job hiding him.
Yeah, there's something to be said because there's a lot of animes that try to blend 3D animation to 2D animation together. I think the the Disaster trilogy might be the most the series where they try to marry it the most together.
I mean, the world just feels so real, solid, grounded. The lighting that hits the characters and the way it hits the environment just makes it feel like they're together.
Mhm.
Really good.
Yeah, think something that strengthens more of that grounding is something's going on, but it's not like affecting the day kind of thing, just the person, which gives the difference of weathering with you, where it's the nature and the weather actually changes the community and the people and the things in the world and like the flooding and like that has a lot more magical essence to the world of that film opposed to this one that feels very, as Crimson said, grounded in kind of the reality.
Yeah. I think I pitched when we started Weathering with You, one of the things I pitched about the Disaster trilogy was there's always usually a single magical twist to the movie, while everything else is supposed to feel grounded. And that's kind of one of the reasons I really enjoy. I love urban fantasy. It's one of my favorite genres of storytelling. So I have a lot of subjective love for things that are able to get across that magical feeling in a what would be considered a mundane setting.
It's going to be shocking, but I can say it because Shutter Island was last week. The
Mhm.
twist in this movie, I think, hit me more impactful than the Shutter Island twist.
It's gonna be an interesting question that I have to follow up. What do you consider to be the twist? Do you consider
Gonna ask
the
the same
body
thing.
swapping twist
Nope.
or the comet strike twist?
Neither. The time travel twist of the 3-year
Oh,
difference
yeah.
at the
Those are
50-minute mark of the movie.
yeah. The reveal is quite nice. Though I actually started picking up setup for that, I think. I actually wrote down my notes 20 minutes in. And I was like, are they on this? I actually wrote a question in my notes like 20 minutes in. I was like, oh, wait, are they experiencing the same time? Like, are they experiencing
I
on the same time right now?
Yes, I caught a background detail that I think is very good. There's a lot of shots in this movie that have clocks in the background, and I think they do them very well.
Yeah. I was thinking more of the obvious stuff of that would make the time difference more obvious. In hindsight, the phones they use are the Apple variety, but they're 6 generations apart.
Okay,
Mm,
I
I
didn't
didn't
catch
pick up
that.
on the technology difference.
I
Yeah.
thought that was all right though because of the city
Yeah,
boy
yeah,
and then
because
the outskirts people.
yeah, exactly. I think that I think that can be explained away, but looking at it now, I do think that adds to the setup of the time travel twist. Because usually, and this is predominantly speaking, Apple designs their phones to last usually 3 to 5 years. So usually, uh, having a phone like that's 2 generations apart is normal. 3 generations apart is also normal. But beyond that, it starts to get a little odd. So the best way I can, I guess, describe it is it's like uh, if you went from Taki's iPhone 11 to Tony Stark's like simple like touch screen glass device he uses at the start of Iron Man 2 when he's hacking into the Senate. For me, that's kind of almost what the tech difference becomes at a certain point.
Yeah, that's a drastic jump.
Yeah. So it's not quite as extreme as the example I'm as the metaphor example I'm giving, but I took the phones as my first clue of like I think there's time travel shenanigans,
Yeah, I'm
which is
glad they answered a question I wrote down pretty early on once the whole body swapping stuff was confirmed. And um, they said it's like 2 to 3 times a week was the swapping. And I was like, can they not just call each other instead of leaving messages on their devices? They could just
I had the same thing.
give the rundown. But then they explain it, and 3 years apart, and she's dead. So
yeah.
Yes,
calling wouldn't do anything.
but
So,
I still I it might be a nitpick for me in the objective sense of why wasn't that tried like as one of the first things to do rather than just getting at each other for ruining each other's like kind of day-to-day lives and saw it as a first thing rather than way down the line and trying it.
Yes, I can agree with that nitpick. There is definitely there's a level of like it's weird that you waited this long because you're swapping bodies. Though the implication, as I recall, is they only spend a few months body swapping, right?
Yes, but if you're trying to get in
right.
contact with someone you don't know, couldn't you just like ask for their number? It just seemed like it was more like retaliating at each other about, you're screwing up my life. Being, I guess, teens. So I guess there's the mental state of that they're playing with, kind of the jokey and the confrontation between the two characters. But to actually settle the problem of what the heck is going on, which it starts with like, who are you between the two of them? I feel like getting to that answer is easier in this modern day setting of 2013 and 2016 than waiting until like further down the line when they try to call and that you can't reach each other.
Mhm. I have a I'm kind of agreement with you as a nitpick. I have a few other nitpicks that I can tack onto that are very similar, but I'll hold on to until Act Two, I guess.
Yeah, because
Uh,
when they do, I guess they play it for the story because when it comes to Taki calling, he can't because she's dead at that point or in that timeline. But if he gave his number to her earlier to contact, he wouldn't have known her in 2013. But I don't know if that would gone into a paradox because how they play it off is a one instance thing where the braid gets tossed over, and that's why he can't remember it because it was a quick instance. But if she constantly called or questioned the future self and then the past self, would his future self remember more of the impact of what's happening in the past, kind of thing? And I
Yeah.
think that would play more into a confusing paradox that they try to have to go with. So I think for the sake of simplicity of the story, they didn't do that.
Well,
Yeah,
if
they've
she tried to call 3 years in the past, to the point where he wouldn't know the number or anything, he could see it as spam, or he might not even have that number yet. We don't really know if because he gets a newer phone. At least that's what we're going with writer's observation. I didn't really notice. Um, so he might have a different phone number than 3 years ago. So we don't even know if that would have worked in the first place.
yeah. I to kind of, I guess, bring it back, 'cause I agree with what you said also, Crimson, but I think the problem, I think the nitpick you have, Sprinks, is the fact that it wasn't attempted, right?
That they're trying to figure out who each other are, but with the devices and technology they have at hand, they're not using it to its fullest.
Yeah. I also have something familiar with I have a similar nitpick. If any one of them, like, scrolled down on their phone, they would also be able to see the year.
Yeah, it's also true. And it seems Teshi, anytime we see Teshi's room, is very technologically advanced. He has like a whole wall of just radios. So I feel like if it's a something connection to like a technology error, it's like, oh, your number's not working, but it is my number kind of thing. That Mitsuha would go to Teshi to try to solve the situation and it'd get an answer there, which could be played with, but it just plays on later that Teshi knows how to do broadcasting.
Yeah. Um, it's yeah, so I agree. It's a bit of a nitpick. I view that as like uh it's kind of a it's half of it's a plot problem that kind of bleeds into the characters a little bit, of like why they didn't try this specific thing, because it feels like something they would obviously attempt to do, even if their phones didn't connect and they're
Yes.
so busy with each other, their own lives, that they're I mean, the implication is they're overwhelmed with what's going on, and it's why they never attempt it, because they obviously have a lot of animosity towards each other at a certain point.
I think it
And
helps
I
definitely with the story of the period as well of 2013 and 2016 because if it's 2016 Taki and it's 1910 Mitsuha or something like then it's
oh,
pretty
that'd be way more
obvious.
obvious. Yeah, yeah. So, uh, yeah, I can agree with your nitpick. But I also think that there's more than enough explanations to get around it too. So, it's interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, that's why I'll settle on nitpick. Not an issue.
That- uh, Crimson got somewhere to go.
Hopefully
Uh,
not.
y-
Stay here. Finish the pod.
yeah, let's talk more
Sorry,
about that
sorry. Let me rephrase. Got somewhere to go in the
in the
uh,
coverage.
yeah.
Sure. Um, I guess this is more of an overarching question, and it kind of has to do with the memories that they do or do not retain. And he doesn't remember the comet thing. And we do see by the end that he witnessed it three in 2013. He did see it. So I don't really know why that thing was forgotten. Because we know he forgot about the town and Mitsuha, but I don't really know why he would have forgotten the comet.
I don't think he forgets the comment.
I'm in agreement. I
I
don't think
might
he
be remember.
forgets, but he doesn't connect the impact
He does.
to the events of what happened then to now because anytime he's in Mitsuha's body, the city's still around,
Yeah, I
and they
don't
never
think
say
he.
the name right
Yes,
with
they don't
Taki's
ever say the
conscience
name.
presence of the town. He just
I
knows what it
know
looks
that.
like.
Yeah, they never say his name. The town's name. To get back to your point, Chris, of him not remembering the comet, I think he does remember the comet. It's just he doesn't connect it to the fact that he already saw it. Because for me, what's standing out about that is when Taki, this is in Act Two, when Mitsuha sets Taki up on a date, um and uh he's looking out for the comet, but he's doesn't see it. So he's just confused by the advice he gets from Mitsuha on his phone from that point.
It's just kind of weird because this is like a modern setting, 2013, 2016. They have the technology. They aren't separated by lack of communication options in the world, not between those two. They obviously do. Um, so I would think a big event like that, you would probably know the name of the place. I feel like a
You
lot
mean
of
do you mean the
disasters that happen around the world, it's known where certain things happen.
okay, you mean the comet strike?
Yes, because
Yes. Okay.
you guys were starting to argue, well, he might not know the towns associated with it, and then I'm like, well, I feel like there's a good chance he probably did hear about it, and he might actually know about it.
All right. I thought you were tackling a different problem. My
If
bad.
I'm
Oh, it was. It's kind of shifted based off of what your guys'
if
answers were.
I'm thinking
Okay.
like now, if a volcano in Hawaii went off, and it's like big, impactful, and made news, and 3 years from now, someone like I was body swapping with someone in Hawaii, I'll just go, "Oh, you're in Hawaii," kind of thing. I wouldn't know it's 2 days prior to that volcano event that happened 3 years prior.
I mean,
Okay.
that's you connecting. He didn't even connect dots, though.
He's okay.
He didn't even
So
acknowledge that
Yeah,
it
but what
happened.
what gave him the connection other than Mitsuha saying like, "Look out for the comment tonight," and he doesn't know what she's talking about?
And I guess the name of the town.
Yes, the name of the town, which I think is they show us more of the point of view of Mitsuha in her own body than Taki in it. So the town name, I guess it's believable, but if Taki's in the high school, I feel like the name of the town is on the high school if there's only one high school in that town, kind of thing. So it does seem
I'm sure
hard
it's
that
brought up.
Taki didn't know the name.
Yeah, for like the festival as well. I'm sure it's been brought up. Um, so I think it would.
Yeah, but they do play it off that it is Mitsuha we're seeing in the event. So I didn't
I
go
think
back and like
we
actually check that Taki's consciousness heard the name, but I think they play it off where in the film depiction it never happened, but in a whole day instance, I feel like it is totally believable that the name would have been said.
Yeah. I think what you were getting at, Crimson, actually is adjacent to one of my bigger problems with the film, um, which is more about the dream aspect of them swapping places. Because I actually do think that Taki does know the town's name at a certain point. Because I think the grandmother, Mitsuha's grandma, mentions it when they're hiking to the shrine place. Um,
Yes, but is that
when she's
Taki?
giving,
Well,
yeah,
she
that's
said the
Taki.
name of the shrine. I don't think she said the name of the
The
town.
town. Okay, yeah, and yes, that is Taki going to the shrine.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, they make it very clear because and this is more of a they make it very clear that it's Taki because Taki is asking questions that Mitsuha already heard the answer to
It
in
makes sense. Yeah,
earlier parts of the film.
it makes more
Yeah.
sense too if Taki offering a piggyback ride than Mitsuha.
Yeah.
Also, how he learned about the shrine to even go to later. So,
Yeah. Um so there was that what was it? Uh yeah, well so my adjacent problem, Crimson, it's kind of similar to yours and it's also an overarching one, is I think it could be done better. Um like I will take anything that Taki does while he's asleep as uh as a dream. So dreams tend to fade. So whenever he's in Mitsuha's body, that stuff fades because normally dreams fade after a certain period of time. So my issue is when it's Taki in his own body and it's like his consciousness and he's clearly awake, I don't understand why the memories fade at that point, you know?
yeah, it kind of comes down to convenience of the plot for certain aspects of things.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of convenience in this plot, and I'm not gonna shy away from that. But one of the biggest things about the convenience of the plot is just what's forgotten and what's remembered. So there are a lot of what Takis could remember of the dreams, like specifics of like what's the you often people have a hard time remembering specifics in dreams. So I'm fine with him forgetting the town's name and stuff like that. But it would be weird for him to not know of the Itamori disaster. Itadori disaster. Is that Itamori? Itadori? I don't know.
Tamori, I think.
Yeah. It would be weird for him not to know about the disaster because of the impact that it would have in
Good pun.
Japan. In
Ah, yes, Impact.
yeah, but so like
Yeah,
for me, I
because it's
can
not even in world
explain.
news. It's local. I mean, it's in Japan.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure of good. I'm trying to think of a good equivalent in our world, and a lot of what's coming up is like in my head is stuff like 9/11, which
The
was global
bombing,
news.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that was
Hurricanes.
global, but yeah,
Hurricanes
hurricanes.
hurricanes can be, but it usually depends on the severity. Like everyone remembers Hurricane Katrina. No one
Uh,
remembers hurricane like Iden.
yeah, but you had the tsunami in Japan a few years ago. That was everyone heard about that, knew that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
then
I
you're
think
playing with the difference between national news and world news.
well, yeah, but like I say, if a comet strikes Japan, I'm more likely to believe there is going to be stuff about it, which I think there is. In Act Two, the when he goes to the date with his coworker, I do think all the pictures looking on the wall there. I think that's a memorial shrine
Oh,
Could
interesting.
be.
because he does see the familiar Crater Lake, so I think that's a memorial shrine that he's at.
He does. Well, Crater Lake is in the U.S. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Well, you know what I mean. It
I
is
know
a
what you mean.
crater.
Just wordplay. Um, Possibly it would be interesting for that to be present though in a museum.
I'd shy away from it because I feel like they would show before and after stuff. It wouldn't just be before. And if there was before and after, he'd see that.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
And if
I
it
think
was
it
a
is in.
memoriam, they'd have the town name.
Yeah, like that's what I'm thinking. I think that's kind of what it is, but I'm not 100% sure because we don't play with the concept of it other than he sees something familiar and then he's pulled out of it by his date.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know. I'm
I,
leaning that it's not a memorial, but definitely
yeah.
like a
Either way, it's a
deja
little
vu
convenient.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
being
Either
trapped
way,
with
it's a
like
little convenient.
recognizable. Yeah.
So, um, all right. I think that was kind of a crimson point to my point. So, Springs.
Is the Shrine Maiden Sake a reference joke to bath like gamer bathwater?
No.
Okay.
Um, when was that? That was a while ago, huh?
That was after the sake thing with going down the
No, I
steps.
mean the bathwater thing you're
Oh,
referencing.
I don't know, 2016? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know how much of an impact that made in Japan to make it in the movie, so I don't know.
I don't think so, but because that is traditionally how they
It's
fermented it.
traditionally how
That
it
was the whole
is,
point
but
of it.
how
How she
Yotsuha
reacts to it.
told her it's like, "Oh yeah, just sell your spit, you'll make a bunch," kind of thing.
Oh, that part. Maybe that might have been kind of a joke.
Yeah, I didn't mean the actual
Um,
ceremonial thing, which I thought was dumb of the bullies being like, "Oh look, she's spitting into a
I
cup."
would
I'm like,
never do that.
that's
Yeah.
against these people were untraditional swines. I don't know, they're uncultured,
they're uncultured swines, is what they are. But yeah.
insulting the
Um,
practice of traditional sake making. Get out of here. And guess what? They did. They don't come back for the rest of the movie. So
I was just about to say, why are they in the movie? It's not like her getting bullied really means anything.
is it to play
the
that could be a reason of the personality changes before the answer is given?
Yes. It implies reasons for the personality changes because later on, that's why Taki in Mitsuha's body kicks over the desk in class because she hears the bullies.
Yeah.
Or So, or because he hears the bullies, however you want to take it. So, the bullies are there to help play off the personality difference. So they serve more of a uh, they're not characters; they're more of tools for the narrative.
Yeah, they're certainly tools.
in every sense of the word.
Yes. Um, but yeah, to get back to your question, maybe then if your focus is on like the sister being like, here, you could just sell your shrine maiden spit slash sake making for money and people will pay for it. Uh, I maybe it's I think it's genuinely there as uh both
A
a
perverted
kind of a
thing.
half a joke, kind of a kind of a perverted thing, kind of a half joke, and because she's desperate to leave this town behind and she wants a new life.
She wishes to be a boy,
It's true,
I
she
mean,
does.
yeah, wishes
a
to,
handsome Tokyo boy specifically, is
yeah,
what she said.
but
Yeah,
that plays
she
into
she wishes
Mitsuha
it
wanting to go on the date with Ukudara.
a little bit, yeah.
Now, like Shutter Island, um, I was curious what the heck is up with the injury on Taki's face.
Well, they reference it as a way that he's rough and aggressive. At least that's what uh, Okadura said when pointing it out that he was a different person that day. Um, so it's a visual depiction that he's aggressive, and that's about it. We don't get a backstory of what particularly happened to get that bandage, I
We
guess.
can presume that there was a scuffle that he got involved in.
Okay. A visual difference of masculine urge against this new feminine side.
Pretty much, yeah. It helps differentiate the two personalities inhabiting the body. Uh, I will say this because I think it needs to be said. I do appreciate their reaction to being a body of the opposite gender because that is very much what teenagers would do.
Probably more than just teenagers.
That's also true. Yeah, fair enough. I think they depict that well enough without necessarily making it like, what's the word, crass.
Yes,
I
it's not.
think
It's not the Jimmy Neutron episode of Jimmy and Cindy swapping bodies.
Yeah.
um, I think they went a little much with the boob thing. In particular, when he comes back as her after he realized she's dead and everything, and he hugs himself as her. I'm like, okay, cool. He's grown a little bit. And then the sister comes in, and then he's still doing it. I'm like,
And
well,
he's weeping. He's bawling his eyes out.
I felt like that was not the time. I
I
felt like
I
that
think
was too much for this movie because
I don't know.
pretty serious movie. I
I
feel, and that was too jokey.
I don't know. I thought it broke the tension in a way that was fine with the character. He missed doing it, so that's why he did it. Uh,
At this time, I feel like he has too much respect for her to do that.
uh, I don't know. I'm not sold on that. So we'll get there when we get there.
All right.
uh, and I guess I'll hop back to you, Crimson, unless that
All
was your
right.
point.
No, I was just piggybacking off that. So the guy that was, I guess, stealing from the restaurant or whatever, the, the little scumbag guy with the toothpick.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, I it was interesting that it was caught that the toothpick didn't belong there, because that was Mitsuha's first time, presumably there,
Hmm.
but based off of the timeline we were at. So I guess she's very observant to notice that they don't have those toothpicks there to even point that out in the first place. Um, but I had an issue with, and it's a nitpick of um, Akurdara. I'm what
Okudera.
Okadera. I
Okudera.
kind of had an issue how she realized he's the one that cut her skirt, because that was after everything. She didn't notice during it. Someone had to point it out to her that it happened. She's like, "Oh, it was that guy." Like, well, you could have snagged a chair or something. Why? Why was it that guy? So that was a little leap in logic to me. Little nitpicky thing.
I thought it was a leap that the
Uh,
guy just pulls out an X-Acto blade at a restaurant.
well, he's a scumbag.
Yeah, but is that a common thing in like Japan?
It
No
might have
clue.
been. I
Because
know
I'd
there
find
was
that
some
weird in the
issues with
U.S.
that.
if like someone's like, "Oh, sorry about the food. Your order was wrong. Let me go take care of that." And as they turn, someone pulls out a knife and like cuts the back of their leg. Like that sounds
Well,
crazy.
yeah. I mean, they cut the
That's
skirt,
crazy.
so I do think it was a um. It's convenience, I guess, that she figures it out immediately. Like, I think if it was supplied to her as suggestion and she just said, "Oh, that makes the most sense," I think that would work out the smooth out the convenience of it. I don't
One of them
necessarily have
said,
an
"I
issue.
saw the guy cut it." It's
Yeah,
it's just a nitpick. It doesn't really lead to anything much.
It
I
well,
mean,
it does. It plays into the hemming of the skirt.
yeah, it
that
does play into an important
I
scene.
her knowing it was the guy doesn't matter. If she didn't find out who did it, if it wouldn't change because the rip would still be there. That's the part that doesn't matter. Obviously, the sewing of it matters. And at that point, I was like, interesting. Is that not up to code now? That skirt? Is she even allowed to wear that to work anymore?
Ooh, good point.
Because I haven't been to Japan, so I'm not going to claim to know a lot. But my understanding is they kind of have high standards when it comes to eating establishments.
And uniforms.
So I feel like that would be a no go uniform.
I think it's from what I understand, it does vary from restaurant to restaurant. But this place comes across as a place that would have a uniform code.
It does look
Just by
It
the
fancy.
does. It feels
yeah,
fancy, but
It's not a
Okudera
cat
also
cafe.
seems like she's the employee who has everyone else wrapped around her pinky.
yeah. I think she could weasel out of it, and it's not that much of a break for the uniform. I think she can get away with it. But it's weird that it doesn't come up again as like a part of a conversation outside of just the boys being jealous and Taki being told, "I can't sew." Taki's like, "I can't fucking sew."
Yeah, man, the bro code.
Yeah.
A detail
That
I
was so
did catch, and I brought up a little with the clocks that I think was really good in the town, Mitsuha's town, and they complain about there's no cafe or there's only like two stores and like how small it is, and everything closes at 9 o'clock. And then when the hemming of the skirt's going on, the clock in the background says 10:15, showing that the restaurant was open later, being in the city than where Mitsuha's from.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't pick that up.
Is
Um,
there a time zone difference there? I don't
Not a time
I
zone,
don't think
no.
think
no, it's not a time zone difference there. It's more of just like the things are just open later in the city. Because in a
well, no,
small town, everything
if
has.
it's 10 whatever, then and 10:15, then she would have been in bed by now, right? If
Not if she's in Taki's body, which is what she's doing, working, thinking it's a nightmare.
well, the rules we were established is once they go to sleep, they swap, right?
Yes,
So
but they don't have to sleep at the same time.
the
They have to be
that's
asleep at the same
that's what I was
time. They don't have to go to bed together at the same time.
yeah, I was gonna bring up a rule they didn't really cover is if once one person sleeps or both have to be asleep to swap.
Well,
I
it's
think
also
both
the
need to be
time
asleep to
change.
stop. But
Yeah, it's also the 3-year time thing. So it's not like if Taki stays up all night, Mitsuha is never going to wake up. It's like whenever Taki will go to bed, upon waking will be the change. That's how I took it.
It's just interesting because yeah, what if one stayed up all night, one did sleep, and then the one that stayed up all night fell asleep at noon the following day, and the other one stayed up. Um, could you just cheat the system, I guess, and stay as the other person for a prolonged period of
I
time?
I th- I would say so. I think as long as you're awake, you can stay in the body longer. But if you fall asleep at 6 a.m., you're gonna wake up at 7 a.m. in the other body because it's a different day, but also a different year. So I think because of the year gap thing, it doesn't necessarily matter with the time of when you fall asleep.
I mean, if they're
Then
swapping every 2 or 3 days, I think they might feel tired if
at
they
the
like, they would
crater they swap, right? Or not the crater, the shrine. They swap, right? Because Tashi set up the whole alarm system thing, goes up there, they meet, and then they swap up there.
Mhm. Yeah, they swap
They didn't
face to
go to
face up
sleep.
there. Yeah, that's the only time that that rule is broken, and I think that's just to get the magic hour thing in and have the braid passed over. I have my issue with that scene is, well, since we're there, I kind of want to wait, but
Yeah, we
We can wait if
can.
you want.
yeah, we'll wait.
I was talking about the rules of the whole sleeping and
Yeah,
swapping. So
yeah, yeah. If we
that
focus on
stand
that
out as an
specifically,
issue.
yeah, if, that it would be the exception to the rule so far, and I don't know if I can label that as an inconsistency because it's quote unquote magic hour. So it's just a level of like, what am I accepting as magic here, or what's the magic that's going on right now?
What it kind of applies to me is it's set to the time and not to the people sleeping.
Um, I will subscribe to that more if we have more evidence. I'm
Is
totally
it?
down to buy that as an explanation.
Mm, I don't know what caused the start of the body swap. I don't think it's explained, but the time of how far to the stopping of the event happening, like at a certain point, it like no longer happens. Is the start a parallel time of the 2013 of Mitsuha and the 2016 of Taki's timeline being on the same track until Mitsuha's body of that timeline no longer exists by dying, and that what breaks the connection? Because then the sleep thing is not what I just said previously of a connection then. If it's actually set to a schedule of days up to a point.
They are set to a schedule of days up to a point, and the reason we know this is because they're flipping through dates on their phone. So Mitsuha would notice because it says March 15th, March 16th. And so when he's flipping through dates on the phone, they see each other's journal entries on the phone. So we know that there's dates attached. So they're not swapping abnormally,
Yes, but are those the
like at
same
random
dates?
times.
So is it
Well,
like exactly a 3 year difference?
Mitsuha would notice if there weren't in March, pretty much.
That's true.
So what I'm
Well,
saying is that
look at the
because
phone.
she's leaving journal entries on his calendar, on his phone, pretty much, she would notice that if it was a different month. So yes, they are synced up like
Okay, it's
by
exact
days, I
3
think.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then it comes to the question: then why can he rewind back to fix it if
Uh,
within the timeline she dies? Which is
I
why the
have
connection.
no clue.
Because that was some strong sake.
Yeah.
He added
My best
chemicals into the
explanation
mix
is
of the magic and
yeah, like all you're gonna get from me is just it's how the magic system is supposed to work. What they describe as building up to it with the whole threading bit. It's just lucky that it happens to be. Actually, it's not. I wouldn't say it's lucky that it was the last day because they didn't swap originally on the last day, so there was room for it to work. But we don't have any rules to say they can't do this, and also any rules that say they can do this. If that makes sense, it's just something that happened.
Well, what we have is communication ties were cut, and presumably because she died within the timeline of them being parallel.
Oh, I see what you're gonna say.
So
Okay.
we know that day happened, right? So now we're going back in time when he has the Sasuke, which breaks what we've been going through journey
Who's
wise.
Sasuke?
Sorry, sake.
Yeah, no, okay. Now that I understand what you're saying, I agree that the rule that you're pointing out is inconsistent. Yeah, that is also one of the rules
yes.
I also have an issue with because
Well,
they were quote unquote synced up, and then they were desynced, and then he went back in time
does it ever,
to a day where they weren't in sync.
unless Taki's body went back in time
Um,
to the day of the comet in 2016? Because there's nothing really around to prove a difference. Like no one's around to say like you travel like by himself until like the magic hour and then the time's different. where Taki forgets her name, and I think that could indicate a change at that end of the magic hour to go back to present day. That could be a thing.
I feel like that's something they'd have to kind of establish. Because I guess with that thought process, him drinking it sent him back a day. Therefore, their timelines are paralleled again. But we don't really get anything confirming that that's what actually happened.
That's true.
Yeah, we don't get anything confirming, but that's just
All we got is
we're
that the
theory
bodies
crafting.
are
Yeah.
swapped again and in sync.
Yeah. Uh, I'm labeling that as more of a world building and magic convenience. Plot convenience is what it is, or plot contrivance. It's probably a little bit bigger than a convenience, considering the whole story relies on it.
Yeah, I was like, it's kind of past nitpicking, kind of a
Yeah,
problem because it is
it is an objective problem.
pivotal.
Yeah, it is very pivotal to what happens. I'm trying to think if an explanation would help,
Well, it would have
or
been better if it's like it didn't work, and then Tagi's state is like, oh, figuring out that they are synced because of the dates on his phone, and would have to wait like 363 days for 2017 to line up with the day and then try it.
I would like that very much. I think that would work if we were able to get him to figure that out.
if that would work, I think if we could get him to figure out, yeah. So two words right out of my mouth. I think the only problem that would then add on to that is just all the journal entries conveniently disappearing.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah,
getting into other act stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so back to Act One. Uh, I will go into, uh, I guess Mizuha, uh, living the dream. So I quite like that, even though even though Taki's friends are noticing him being weird, I do like the fact that she's still enjoying. Uh, Even though she's taken back, I do like the little details of her like enjoying the desserts and stuff like that because that's always she wanted. She gets to go to a fancy cafe and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah, and it shows that they're both breaking their rules, and it's not just Tashi fondling. She's
Yeah,
spending his money. So
yeah, which is why
I
why he's working extra shifts.
I have another nitpick with the scene of the pancakes at the cafe.
all right,
All
I
right.
I don't it's one of those things where I'm not understanding why it was done because it would have played out a lot smoother for me if it was. But upon getting the pancakes and taking the photo, Mitsuha raises the phone, and the phone doesn't cover the entirety of the pancakes on the plate. You can see a little pancakes like on the above the phone on the top, and then it cuts the background to the empty plate without fully encompassing the pancakes hidden, so you can you visually see the cut of the animation shots as the phone is then lowered to an empty plate. And I don't know why that's a thing rather than having the phone like a hair bigger to cover the entire pancakes to then smoothly move down to show a time jump.
Oh, the transition
Yeah,
for before and after. I'm not sure I understand your problem.
it's
well, he's
choppy. It's
saying
deliberately choppy.
why not hide the cut is what he's saying. And I think it both fits. If you hide the cut, it still has the time jump. If you keep what we currently have, it still conveys the time jump. As to reasons why they chose to show the time jump instead of hiding it, um, I have no idea. But I think it works either way.
Okay. So it wasn't the issue of the time jump itself, it was just the issue of the transition
The
of the
the
time jump.
the animation cut choice for me.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I have any. I don't. I'm trying to picture the scene. I don't think I remember it enough to give my take on that.
Okay. You can
Yeah,
just
I know what the fix is
you
talking
can
about.
see the
Yeah.
pancakes just cut versus being covered and then the phone lowering down to show an empty plate.
I'll jump to one of my nitpicks in the first act. I'm used to seeing sewing kits related to the uniforms being in restaurants and stuff like that, not like what Mitsuha uses to patch up the skirt. Rodoa.
Yeah. Like it's not commonly present in a restaurant?
No, so what I'm saying is like, so if your restaurant has all black uniforms, like, is you would have, it's not unrealistic for them to have a sewing kit in the restaurant to do quick repairs on something that's black, like, or something and that's in
I
you can
see.
do quickly in the back.
They wouldn't have color choices.
They would not have color choices because I don't think that it fits. Then again, that might be a thing in Japan, but for me, that stood out. So that's my nitpick for the
I
first act. One of them.
Yeah, I can totally see what you mean. I think I might have that as a cultural difference because sewing kits could just be in a custom set of like coloring things and not like surgical, like just set black kind of thing, like individually bought. It's probably a kit, and it looked like a kit that Taki was using, or I get Mitsuha was using in Taki's body. So it could be just like a preset of what it is,
Yeah.
kind of
But then
like
again,
how a
my
first aid
my
kit has already pre stuff and it's not custom made.
yeah, I mean my experience at working at a restaurant is limited because I only ever worked at one restaurant. So it might just have been my restaurant being a cheapskate and they don't have a full sewing kit with all the colors, I mean, as options.
Yeah,
I guess anecdotal. Then I guess is or
Anecdotal.
chop it down to
Yeah,
because I
sounds
don't
like
know
it.
the answer.
Yeah, this is me a shrug. I guess it's a nitpick that it's lucky that they have it, but it doesn't really impact much of the story other than the relationship between Taki and Odawar. Oh god damn it! I know I said it wrong.
Ukudera.
Okudera. Thank you.
If it's easy, you can say Miss O.
Yeah, I might say Miso.
Um, Something I saw that made me like question being this whole body swap thing that they've connected and of the film when um before being offered to go to a cafe and Mitsuha in Taki's body is sitting with the two friends and goes over the um the girl gal thing like conversation and the two friends are in sync with their body languages made me question, is this just a comical bit or is there something going on with the two of them?
I think it's more comical bit.
Yes, over the finishing the movie, it's definitely a comical bit, but it did make me question. It's like, oh, is the connection thing happening to other people in different instances?
Yeah, all we know
uh,
is it's tied with the at least the females of Mitsuha's family.
Except Yotsuha, at least yet.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
far.
Mm. Now that she's alive, who knows?
Who knows?
Or at the end, when 3 years older.
Yeah.
Um, so interesting. I didn't pick that up. I actually took that as just more of the friends being in sync because they just have a lot of chemistry together. That's
Yes,
what I took the body language stuff as.
I will say those friends. Hey, speaking about me, those friends are also a bit tools when you go to a cafe and you're commenting on the timber work inside a place. Like, are these guys architects?
Maybe one of them could be an architect
I mean,
major. That's
Taki
not
kind of
out of the
is.
ordinary.
Yeah, I was gonna be like, they very could well be in like an architecture class.
Yeah, which would make sense, I think. At least for because Taki kind of it comes across that he had history, if not with architecture, at least with uh, drawing.
You know what?
Uh,
Well,
Yes.
he goes for a job
No,
application.
that could that could play into why Mitsuha isn't a part of the conversation and is more focused on dogs in the cafe, whereas it would be common with Taki and his friends to talk about something like that.
yeah.
Very well possible. Uh,
How are you all looking at Act One?
getting there. Not much left.
All right. I
I
guess.
looking over the rest of my notes, they've kind of already been touched on, so I think I'm kind of out for Act One.
Uh, all right. Then Crimson, you go.
All right. So there's a part. I don't remember if it was Mitsuha or Zaya that said it, but they were talking about how there was nothing in the town to do, and then there was like a montage of them jumping to places uh, on their walk somewhere, and Zaya was just saying, and this place at each location they were cutting to, which means she was just listing things for a very extended period of time on that walk, or the likely thing, it was just the stylized montage bit.
I think it was just a
It's definitely
stylized.
Yes,
it's definitely stylized, but I find it amusing. She just hated this place so much that she just went on a 30-minute rant
on and
to
on for half an hour, just listing everything they have in Doma.
uh yeah, and I actually even if it was that, I actually quite it's not out of character for her at this point to do that, but I actually quite like the idea of that because we find that night her friend Tenshi also agrees with her.
Oh yeah, that there's not much to do there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh
And
I will jump to Miss O having uh kind of having a I guess enjoying Taki now Mitsuha's feminine side
yeah,
after repairing the skirt. It plays a smaller role going forward in the film, but I'm happy that like they take that somewhere and it's worthwhile.
yeah, I agree. And I like that a lot of the people in this are acknowledging of the differences of the people. Shows how close they are.
Mhm.
Yeah, how attentive they are of their friends.
'Cause, I'm thinking of like Parent Trap, the uh, boyfriend of Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm bad with names. The mom in
Oh,
Freaky Friday.
yes, that's in Freaky Friday, not Parent Trap.
Oh, I said Parent Trap, did I? Other Lindsay Lohan thing, Freaky Friday. Um, was that Jamie Lee Curtis?
Yes.
Okay, her fiance in that, he picks up on some stuff, but he never really acknowledges anything in there. Uh, which I always thought was like, I feel like if you're close enough to these people, you'd pick up on more. But in this movie, they all pick up on everything.
Which is something I like. Even though their side characters aren't like super deep, they're still I think well fleshed out for the most part.
Yes, isn't correct me if I'm wrong, writer, but isn't Edgar Evernever the boyfriend in that movie?
Freaky Friday?
Yeah, the one
Uh,
who's like
a
trying to hit on the daughter, who's Jamie Lee Curtis in the body. I think it's him.
And you mean Edgar Never Never from Riverdale?
Yes.
Uh, I don't remember him enough to
Oh,
know.
I looked it up. Uh, that guy is in there. He's not the guy I was referencing, but
No,
yeah,
you're talking about the fiance.
yeah,
But
but yeah, that is that guy
okay,
that you're talking about. What a name, Edgar Evernever.
It's time in Riverdale. Believe me,
it's a D and D
you missed
thing.
out, Crimson.
Hmm.
One might argue for the better. Uh, Crimson, back to you because that last one was mine.
Yeah, the note that said, "Mitsuha, who are you? What are you?" Uh, I was a little confused by that note in particular
What are you?
because
Could be a demon.
yeah, but I feel like that stuff he could have looked into kind of as her. Like, who are you, Mitsuha? What are you? I divorce from who are you? Because you could read those as the same question or two different questions. Um, I don't know. Just kind of a weird one to throw in. I don't know if we needed that.
Yeah,
Well,
I feel
they both play off that what they're experiencing in the other body is just a dream and not a reality.
at first anyway. Yes.
Yeah.
I took that as more of him taking notes for himself in the dream. Like, who am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to be?
Oh, could be that.
Yeah. So like, who are you? He's asking that to himself because he doesn't know yet. And then obviously that ramps up more and more when he has the recurring dreams and Mitsuha starts dreaming his life as well.
I think this also goes
Alright,
into the
I'll
little
buy it.
nitpicky phone thing. It's like, why write all over your body when you have paper and pen and a phone accessible?
I think it eventually just becomes animosity. Like,
Well, they forget things, right? Like, if you wrote in a notebook, that person might not look at the notebook that day, right? But if
yeah,
it's on your hand, you're gonna know. You can see that.
I don't know. Taki
yeah,
gets to the point of reading the notebook every day
yeah.
or journal entries.
But I think it's eventually, yes, because it becomes a regular occurrence in his life. But at first, it makes sense that they start writing out things like that at first, and then as they start communicating with each other more, that's when they add on to the checking their phones each day, and then scrawling on their arms like, "Hey, remember to do this because it's important." Like,
Yeah, don't
keep
touch
your legs
boys.
closed.
Don't touch
Yeah,
girls.
yeah. This kind of leads us into the montage. So, if you have anything else for Act One, Crimson, say now or forever hold your peace. Which I won't hold you to because we're popcorning around anyway. But
Yeah. No, I'm good.
all right, so Act Two, we may as well start with the montage because we're kind of leading into that. Um, the I think it kind of went to them leaving notes on each other's body for them to quickly read, like just uh, hey, remember to do this. This is important. Like for advice from me too, I would give to talking is like gotta remember to keep your legs closed because people will look up your skirt. Uh, and it's things like that that I think they start writing on each other's bodies, which then turns into more animosity as they get frustrated with each other.
Yeah, for not following the guidelines. They're more
Yeah,
like guidelines.
not
Ooh,
actual rules.
Hector Barbosa.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a decent montage, quick to the point. We understand their mindsets with each other.
Yeah, I
And
do like that they try to help each other in a way, which will help each other in the sense that they start laying boundaries for each other. Because even though they don't follow them all the time, I do like that they are trying to do what's best for the other person because they both recognize how odd the situation they're in is.
I think
he,
this montage is so well done, answering the question of the two of them in sync, asking are switching places kind of thing at the same time in the shot, to then the animation just ramping into the montage of speed of the pacing, the music added and the animation all just kind of screams the answer of yes, of like the world answering their question to them. And I think it was very that just like that connection was very nicely done.
Mhm. This is the song I saved from the movie. Uh, the song that plays during this montage.
Ah,
Because I just enjoy the music, and I'm assuming you really enjoyed the fact then that the writer worked directly with the
yes,
band.
yeah.
So uh, yeah, I think this is the scene where I felt the most obvious that they worked directly with the band because at least most obvious to me because of how it ramps up and comes back down within the tone, within the beat of the music. I let's see stuff about the montage I like just very quickly. I like how because they're different people in each other's bodies, they are attracting different people. So like the whole it's set up for their eventual romance that doesn't really take place in the film, but it's set up for when like the as the epilogue to the story that takes place. That they're both just really, really frustrated with each other in that opposites attract kind of way.
Yeah, they don't want a relationship, but lo and
Good
behold,
chemistry.
they do.
Yeah. Yeah, good chemistry. I like it. I love the subjectively, I love the fact they were so frustrated with each other. They wrote "idiot" on each other's faces.
dumb idiot.
Well, one of them is right, but I'll save that for later.
All right.
um, all right, so Springs, I guess I'll turn it over to you for Act Two.
A detail I
Anything?
like now. I didn't know the reason because I was kind of going with the time difference. I'm like, it's all in Japan, but is there an actual time difference between the two towns? And I was curious on it was when um, Taki looks at his phone and realizes, oh, I have a date today with Ukudera, and it's at 10:30, and it's like, oh, I gotta go, and he runs out of his home and he's running down the street to go get to the train, and it cuts to Mitsuha waking up and realizing, oh, the date's today, probably already there. We can see Mitsuha's clock, and it says like 7:35 around there, and I went, how far is this train station for Taki to take like 3 hours to get to his date? I'm like, well, this time isn't syncing to that unless it does take 3 hours, or if there's a time, and that was like a little confusing. I'm like, something's off here.
And then you said it was retroactively fixed for you,
Well, it
or
wasn't.
something about it.
It wasn't. It's just it's showing that they wake up at different times, and they show in because it's not filmed in order then of timeline. If um, Taki wakes up first, and I don't a time I may have been on his phone, I didn't catch it, but to rush to get there at 10:30 without needing 3 hours to get there, to wake up at a time that's after 7:35 ish to Mitsuha's time of waking. So Taki would have woken up, let's just say like 9 to get to the train station, an hour and a half, where then it goes to Mitsuha an hour and a half earlier in time because there's no time difference of the two cities, to then her thought of the date today and crying in the mirror.
Well, what
Yeah.
if that's just the order they chose to show for the movie and not necessarily how they woke up in universe? Because if she woke up at 7 the earlier time and they showed that first of, oh, the day's today and cries, and then we got to him coming out of the bed, darting out the door to the date, that kind of gives a different feeling than if they did it the other way around, the way they actually ended up doing it.
Yes, no, it definitely that would change the tone a bit, and I think that would play more into less of a shock of what Mitsuha has done for Taki, and the shock of Taki's reaction to the situation, and more into the sadness of Mitsuha being the focus of that. Then, so I think the feeling coming across would change, not necessarily for the better or worse, but by what they have or what they are showing, with our theory that they're synced up to the same days because no one's questioning their journal entries on their phones. It's not filmed in time order of that day.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's filmed in time order of that day. And furthermore, to add on to that, this is the day Mitsuha decides to go to Tokyo, right? To try and see him too, to surprise him.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, after she finishes crying, she decides to I'm gonna go as well because I want to surprise him and I want to see him.
I have a date
And
to go
that's
to. I didn't say it was mine, right?
yeah,
That line is later, which adds context to this scene here.
yeah. So I do think this is also the day she goes to Tokyo to try and see him, and then she gives him the braid or the cord.
Yeah. 3 years in the past.
Yeah. So is Mitsuha kind of setting up a secret then date, or not necessarily a date for romantic intent, but just a meetup, knowing that Taki's going to be there to see Okudera at the station at 10:30 and try to get there at the same time to meet the two of them.
I think so because
I think that's why
she
we get the monologue from her talking about whether he'd be upset with her or appreciate the surprise, right? Because I was thinking, why
Yes,
would he be upset? But if she is joining in on the date, then I guess it would make sense why she would think he'd be upset about that.
but we then also get later that during that day of visiting Tokyo, Mitsuha doesn't stay at the station looking for the two of them, but walks all over Tokyo.
goes all to his normal hangouts or what his normal hangouts are going to be in 3 years. She's looking for him where she expects to see him. He might not even be at the school he's attending in 3 years time. So I think she's just trying to find him based on what she knows about his life, and which at that point is inaccurate by 3 years.
Is it also synced up to a Sunday, I guess, because the day where they go to the shrine walk, Yotsuha questions Taki, "Why are you dressed in your uniform?" not casual day, so it's not a school day, which would probably resort to Saturday. So the following day possibly would be Sunday, and that's why the school's not visited, or allows them not to be in their uniforms? Or is it like because of the 2 week, body swap thing, this is just like a following Saturday kind of thing?
That
I
gets into cultural stuff I don't know, because I would imagine maybe saying that you have a religious or ritual thing to do on a particular day, if they would let you get out of school for that or something. I don't know. So I don't know if school wasn't there or if she was just not skipping school to do the trek to the shrine.
Oh, I figured the trek to the shrine wasn't a school related or to
yeah,
get
that
off
wasn't a school
because
day
Yotsuha
because
also wasn't in school.
yeah, I don't think it's a school day because they express like, "Why are you in your uniform?" They expressly point that out, like that there's no school today. They're not going to school.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, what I'm saying is if they planned ahead to get the day off for the walk, then obviously she wouldn't be in the uniform. He wouldn't know that. So he would have dressed up assuming, right? So, I don't know.
I don't know. Also, with the
I
roughly like 2 body swaps a week, it's not really guaranteed which days the swaps are on.
yeah, I might have been lost in your original point. So is the confusion over why there wasn't school that day in comparison to what?
Towards me or Crimson?
No, for you, yeah, it's for you,
My,
Spence.
mine
I
is
think I think I lost in your original point.
my original point is the reason why, or that Mitsuha goes to Tokyo to go to try to find Taki and isn't going to attend to a school is to me that it's a weekend of either a Saturday or Sunday, which lines up with the date as well of Taki and Okudera being not necessarily a work day because they're both available, and it seems from the date that it goes all day long because Taki even offers for dinner from a 10:30 start time. So it's a whole long day of a date, but they're free the whole day kind of thing, and it's not a
Yeah.
school related thing. So they're both on a weekend, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the Saturday Sunday prior um, of jumps. It can be like the following week kind of thing if that's how the time goes with the body swapping. It's just both
Um,
instances were on a weekend is my best guess.
okay, I see what you mean. So, like, when he had when he went to the shrine, he found out Mitsuha had set him up with a date, right? That's the cut of the film?
At the
So once
shrine?
he once he falls asleep from this day at the shrine and he wakes up in his back in his body, he finds out Mitsuha set him up with a date. That's
Yes.
the yeah, yeah, okay. Crimson. Point?
Sure, I'm sure I could scrounge up something. Um, I I like the mindset that Taki went through once he realized um, that the town was destroyed, and he was trying to decide whether it was a dream or if it was a ghost. And I feel like it's something they easily could have downplayed, but I do like how they focused on it, of him passing through options. Is he crazy, dream, ghost, all
Yeah.
that? And Okadera is pretty supportive because it is a weird situation. Like you're seeing your coworker or friend seemingly going crazy, so you're trying to be supportive and also get them on the track of sanity. You
Yeah.
know,
But I also
to
appreciate the
draw
fact
the
that they've recognized that something had changed before then because he was nicer. Like, they
Mhm.
recognize the change in his personality. So they know something was tangible enough to bring him there, you know? So I like that they don't just dismiss him either.
Yeah.
I agree.
I agree. Jinx, you owe me a soda. I will jump to uh, I guess the reveal of the town having been wiped out with the comet strike. Um, because uh, she or well the oh man, I can't order it. I can't talk right now. Jesus, give me a sec.
That's hard to do. That's a
Yeah.
big problem for being a podcast,
Mm.
not being able to talk. Shoot. Well, I'll let you collect your thoughts, and I'll jump in for you a little. To branch off of that, to not move topics. I think that reveal of the town being wiped out is so heavy of a scene, and I think they do it very well. That they play, not that you don't care about either character possibly, but being that Mitsuha to me, I think, is for the first half of the movie more impactful of a main character by how they play it off as of more of her point of view from her days of being confused and then in Taki's body thinking it's a dream and everything, and how that's turned out. That the realization of the scene that she's dead hits home of like, wow, this character we've been following is now gone, and the mystery of to why or how, and just kind of the spiraling of like why, kind of it impacted me a lot, kind of thing. I'm like, wow, that was really well done. Because if it was the other way around where they focused more on Taki, I don't think the scene would have hit as hard as it did, because that's not the character you're more drawn in and connected to through the film so far, I think.
I agree, and the fact that they didn't really lay hints, really, of her being dead, like she has aspirations, goals, and stuff, and it's not like she reached them and then we had the death. There was very much still story left for her. So it being abruptly cut off, I'm like, oh, yep, she's been dead.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
And
wow,
and
that came out of
and I
nowhere.
looked at like the time and
Uh,
I'm like, we're like halfway done with the movie.
yeah, so I'm with you. I think that was a very, very good reveal. I didn't see it coming. You compared it to Shutter Island, since that was something we
Oh,
recently
just yeah,
covered,
a recent twist to this
and I
twist, and
can't
I didn't
really
see this
compare.
coming. The Shutter Island again, 12 minutes in, I had a hint, and it just kind of stuck with it. This one came out of the blue.
Well, the issue, which is why I can't compare them, is because you were looking in Shutter Island for a twist. This you weren't looking for a twist in. You were just covering it as paying attention. But you didn't go into this thinking there was a twist. Shutter Island, you did. I already knew about the twist. Um, so I do feel like that does impact how you view a film. If you're expecting a twist, you look for a twist.
I guess so, but in this movie, it's like my expectation of the difference is the body swap.
Hmm.
So I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool, and then the twist of it, that's just me.
That's fair. I mean, like, I think in terms of a twist, Shawshank, Shutter Island, um, the it's kind of like you're as an audience member are unraveling things with the characters, so you're going along with the characters. But with this, you kind of get the sense that all the twists are up front. Like you already have your gimmick. They're swapping each other's places. You don't know why, but you have your gimmicks. You're not really looking for the twist.
Yes,
True.
um,
especially when no one around Talkie understands what's going on.
yeah,
Like, don't know who you're looking for, don't know where you're looking for it.
You
yeah.
have to scroll online, right? Think I'm
It's
being
it's con-
catfish?
it's it's very convenient that the log entries fade. It I don't know why they do, other than magical bullshit,
Well,
but
I wrote on my notes, I'm like, why aren't you screenshotting?
Those would fade away too.
Would
I guess
they?
those
Uh,
are fade away too. So
I don't know why they fade.
yeah, don't know why they fade. Don't why they fade either. I know why the memories do because
Yeah.
dreams fade. And that's the thematic element behind it, which bugs me. I guess when he's fully conscious in his own body, face to face with her, why he would forget because that's not dreaming it anymore at that point.
Well, it's either as the grandma said, it's either the union thing or the gods of that or the comet itself or possibly even Miyagoro's fire ghost messing with some kind of mischief here.
Yeah. My best guess as to at least why he forgets again is like I said, I could tie most of it to the dream stuff. So like here I tend to think it's fine except for the technology bit that's a little weird. I it fades like future diary stuff, and that's I guess it's another
Yes.
anime reference for you people out there. It's convenient, but it works, I guess. It does push the plot in a particular direction. So I recognize the tool with it. I just trying to think of like what it might be inconsistent with because it stands out to me as odd.
I'm gonna grant it's the movie reason is given and works,
Yeah.
but the in-world reason isn't given and it's confusing.
Yeah. That's my standing issue with it. And that's why because I want like my internal consistency and I can't think of a reason why this would happen outside of it like I can infer paradoxes and stuff like that, but it seems very weak for a very grounded film.
Yeah, and it plays it off not like non-existent, like they don't just fade. It's like an error because like the text is changing characters and then deleting itself. So it's like a
Yeah.
virus or something.
Yeah, I find it as an issue. I obviously the mindset behind it is if they left it in, then it would be an issue.
It's evidence, you know?
Exactly. So they're like, okay, we got to get rid of this, but so they did, but they didn't explain, which is the core issue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
so the standing reasoning is magic bullshit. Is that's the why it disappeared, and I think they could have done a better job justifying it
Yes,
disappearing.
I'm not happy with it. I am though fine with the memory thing in each other's head disappearing like the dream.
Yes.
That makes sense to me. But the technology
Yeah,
thing, it's
that
like just have like Taki trying to scroll through his phone and flicks his phone and it falls and shatters.
or he shows it to his friends, like, look, see the dates are here, and they're like, there's nothing there, and then he looks back and it's fading. It was all in his head or something. It wasn't actually on the phone. It was a memory or something. Um, but it being tied to technology, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
yeah.
something that
I
would
don't
need to be
know
explained.
if the fade to the friends thing works. I feel like that's still one and the
It's
same.
essentially the same thing here. Other than that,
No, because
like
one grounds it
oh,
as
okay.
real. What we have grounds it as that was actually on the phone. But if he showed it to the friends and they see nothing, but he does, then it's not on the phone. It's in his head.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay,
That's
okay.
what I. So I'm trying to get it off the phone, and I think that's a way of doing it. Um,
You know what they could have done to fix this, I think? If they set up that phones don't work well in that particular area.
Maybe, but then it's so like an error got it to his phone and deleted it all.
Yeah. So like well, it'd be like his phone is glitching out for some reason he doesn't understand. And when he
Yeah. It would
tries
be
to
cooler if he
get
tried
it
to
back,
open it and it's like, hey, update needed. And upon updating it, it wipes it all.
interesting. I think there are some workarounds for the
like that could
for
be like the comet causes electric fluctuations or something, and can corrupt files or something. I don't know.
Oh, that'd be weird. That's going to say that the comet's been here for 3 years.
well, nobody's lit and nobody's moved back. So
And those move back.
um I she what's Mitsuha, Jesus Christ. My brain's fading.
What's her
Mitsuha
name?
I know, right? Mitsuha had she had a really bad day. Uh, she went up to try to surprise
What's his
Taki
name?
yeah Taki.
can only do
Sorry,
this bit for so
I'm
much.
trying to read my I'm trying to read my notes too. It's been a while.
Are they deleting
uh,
themselves?
no. So Mitsuha went to go see Taki. Had a didn't get to wasn't remembered by him. Came back, cut her hair. The next day, she wakes up and has Comet Day, where she dies. That was a very bad couple days.
Is that 2 separate
Yeah.
days?
They are one day after the other. Yes.
Oh, I feel like she cut her hair in the morning.
No, she wakes up with cut hair in the morning
Okay.
because we see when Taki wakes up as her for the last time, his hair is cut already.
Yeah. Nope, you're right. Sorry, there's just a scene that's out of sync. That's right. The whole meeting the friends for the meteor and they're like, oh, your hair's cut thing is before the reawake of the new day time thing of the grandma saying you're not
Yeah.
Mitsuha with the short hair. Got it. I'll bring up something that I think is a little dumb, and it could just be in the translation change of the Japanese to English. I think Okudera and how they portray her is very mature of a character, and very adult, and I think that's a good balance of Taki and Mitsuha interaction stuff. But when they're on their little travel, trying to go look for Mitsuha of the three, um, the glasses friend, and then um, Okudera and Taki, they find in a train station a bull mascot thing, and Okudera says, "Look, it moved." And to me, that just feels like a dumb line.
Um,
It kind of feels out of character, and I think it's just a translation change.
I don't know.
I don't know. I
Because
think
nothing
she was. I
about it
think.
said animatronic. I'm like, that's a guy in a costume. Like, that's going to
Oh.
Disneyland and seeing Goofy wave, and it's like, oh my god, he moved! It's like, yeah.
No, no. Well, in Japan, there's a big thing over there about like people pretending to be statues.
Oh, okay, I did not see the bull as a statue. I saw the bull of, like, the Pikachu who can barely move his arms kind of thing. It seemed portrayed very well that
I
this
might
is
not be
a
I might not
character.
yeah, I might not be remembering the scene very well. The bull is a person in a costume, you said?
That is what it
Or
was
is
portrayed to me, yes.
okay. Yeah, then they're looking out for people pretending to be like animals or statues. Like I don't really have much of an issue with that because it's been a very big thing over there. People like there's people dressed up in like samurai costumes pretending to be a statue that scare tourists and people who don't come to the town regularly.
Okay.
So that might just be a touristy thing because they haven't been there.
To me, it just didn't seem in sync with her character.
Yeah, it's a very short exchange that she has with Glasses Dude, right?
Well, it depends
That's
on
what I'm
what scene you're
thinking of.
talking. Are you talking about the smoking scene?
No, the not talking about the smoking scene. I'm talking about the this is the travel montage kind of, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I have any. I don't know if any issues with that, but I agree she comes across as mostly a mature character. I'm fine with, mind you, I'm fine with my mature characters saying like funny little bits just to inject a sense of humor because most people aren't a serious 100% of the time or mature 100% of the time. But there wasn't much to justify the line, I guess. What you're picking on.
It just seemed like a childish trait that she's never demonstrated before or after this.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna. I don't really know. I don't remember the scene much, so I'm just gonna have to chop that one down as a maybe for me. Um,
Okie doke.
Crimson, got a point you'd like to jump to?
Yeah, I guess I'll go to the shrine where he
Part
makes
one
his
or part
journey up
two?
there. Yeah, part two, I guess, to find the other half of Mitsuha and the Saki. And I thought it was visually nice. Place getting flooded, how gray and drab everything is. Um, I like the detail of the moss growing on it. It's all very well done, and he obviously drinks it. And part of me was expecting him to do like a gross face, but he didn't have anything like that. Um, but what was the comet drawing on the ceiling?
Oh,
Depicting a meteor prior.
yeah, they have the grandmother tells of a legend of the comet that passes over their village every
Was it
uh
1200?
yeah
1200 year.
yeah
Yeah,
1200
so that,
years.
that that was the last comet right there.
Yeah,
That's what
and
that
I think
was.
it's at the shrine to go with the story of where did I have this? Which I thought was going to be a little bigger, but Miyagoro's Great Fire.
Yeah, I think that's when it happened. And then also the shrine is also in the middle of what looks to be a crater, so I think it's been something that they've been tracking there, the natives, for a long time. So it's keeping within like the traditions of the town and kind of how it incorporates it into the history. That's why the comet's depicted on the in the shrine because it's a very important part of the culture of the area.
And I guess the
Okay.
reason for that shrine in the first place.
Yes, I would guess so. Their first sign
Hmm.
from the gods, I would
Yeah.
guess.
I guess that's better because I kind of saw that as um, uh, Mitsuha or someone drawing it there recently. I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. Um,
Oh,
but
yeah.
if it's a long-standing drawing, then I guess that fits.
Yeah, that's how I took it. Uh,
You brought it up, Springs. I really enjoy the smoke scene between uh Okudera and the glasses friend.
yeah, I think it's a good change to show a point of view that's not the main characters.
Yeah, in the same way that we have a brief kind of scene with Teshi at his house, and they set up the explosives in that scene, but we get a scene with Teshi in his house and the politics of the dealings with his
His father, and
Mitsuha's
Look at your
father.
goats.
yeah,
Yeah. So I do like that when we take a break from the main characters, it's usually like you're taking a breath from the main story, you know?
yes, but
I
it's
think it
still
helps a lot with the
relevant
pacing.
somehow later, which is
Yeah, it's
nice.
still relevant, but you're still taking you're still, taking a small break from the main plot, which helps a lot with pacing in stories like this.
Yeah, I think it also fleshes out a little more of the characters and world building.
Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't.
Trying to yeah, Shutter Island. Shutter Island was all through the point of view of Andrew, right? It never cut away from his point
Yes.
of view, which was something that was a little shaky on the world building of that movie. Whereas this one, they do cut away from it and helps establish more.
Mhm.
I apologize, audience, if you didn't listen to the Shutter Island because you haven't seen that movie, but the comparisons are a little interesting since we just covered it.
Feel free to check it out.
Uh, Crimson Point? Or no, wait, Sprinks, you were gonna start something.
I thought of it as the mountaintop where the shrine is. Um, Not necessarily a dormant volcano, but just like a cratered in mountaintop. And it shows where the grandma and Yutsuha, when they went with Taki and Mitsuha's body to the shrine in the first place, that there's flowing water, but we see a shot that the entire crater or the entire mountain is like cratered in look, and there's like a lake kind of still water and then the running water, but there hasn't been rain, which is fine later when Taki himself goes to the shrine to try to connect to Mitsuha again and it's raining and there's water. But where does that water come from on a solid place of flowing water to run out?
Magic
You
location.
you mean the water that's already there that they have to step over in the beginning with grandma?
Yes, that's a flowing stream connected to like a little lake pond thing. But without rainfall, how is there water there or still there?
Um, I guess it kind of. Then again, my example would be other crater-made lakes and stuff like that
Yeah, but
that
those are
turn into.
dormant. Those are still water bodies of water. This one's
Yeah.
moving.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think if that stream wasn't moving and was steady, I'd have no problem with it.
That's the only thing I think of is at certain altitudes, cold water can kind of start forming on rocks, kind of like sweat.
Yeah,
Um,
I would.
so it could be that.
I don't have issues with the water being there. I think he's just focusing on the. You said the stream is moving, right?
Saying where the
Without
water's coming from to get moving
Yeah,
water.
without
That's
rainfall or storm or anything that has been shown, that water that the stream is coming from, that pond lake, would be dried out.
Well, I I don't know about that. It's shown to be very foggy, so I don't have issue with the pools constantly being
It's
condensed.
foggy later when Taki goes by himself and it's overcast kind of rainy. But then the water he
Yeah.
goes through the shrine, which is kind of flooded, is still water for him to tread through. The earlier with the grandma and the younger sister in them is a flowing stream of movement.
Yeah, like a river is what you're
Yes, there is
pointing at,
current
yeah?
in it, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
where my quarrel is.
my issue is not the water, the issue is the lack of the issue is the current. I don't know where it would come from. My best faith interpretation is there's another hill nearby that just kind of flows through it, but I don't really have much to go on for geography because we do get a few wide shots
We get the shot of
of
when they're running to try to find each other around the ring of the crater, and we can see that it's not connected to anything else up top.
yeah.
So the water that gets pulled in is from rainfall or the condensation thing that Crimson brought up.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know why it's flowing. So the flowing being
Yeah.
the issue.
Hey, animation looks cool, but a little bit of a problem.
Crimson, go.
All right. I guess we'll go for the comet drawing turning into this whole artistic flair of the fate rope. I guess you said the rope kind of symbolizes fate, right?
Yeah,
Or
the it's
time, which is also brought up in this, and some
yeah.
other
There,
metrics.
it's the red thread that connects you to your fated person.
Yeah.
Uh,
Real movie
So
about
they
soulmates and star-crossed lovers.
Getting a
mm,
lot of that, yeah.
and they we got a style change for the animation, and I don't think it's too out of the blue. I think it's just right. I think if they went a little more stylized, I think it might stand out. Like, if for some reason they did like a Into the Spider Verse style, where it's more like comic booky,
That
Oh,
would be
then
weird.
I feel like that
that'd
doesn't
be weird.
fit. This they went with more like a sketchy look,
Oh, do you mean the
the
sorry.
style that they chose.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
You mean
characters are still
the
identifiable.
flashback. Yeah.
Yeah, their proportions are still the same. It's just kind of the style they used to depict them that's
Yeah.
different.
This real colored pencil look, I would say.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it fits. It's not too startling of a change.
are either one of you familiar with the film Batman Ninja, the Japanese Batman film?
I know what the characters look like, but I don't know anything else of it.
Okay, there's a
I've seen
scene
bits and pieces, and
there's a
so
scene
I'm
in
familiar with
that
the animation. Yeah.
movie that kind of does the same thing here, but the animation change I think is far more drastic. So in
Yeah,
comparison, I think this is fairly well done. Again, as I said, it's still identifiable to know what Taki's looking at and to identify who Taki is in this, and it's not too surreal or blurred look kind of thing.
yeah, it's not too surreal.
Yeah. And this is I think they like this style of animation too because this is more of like their traditional style of animation of what they were first doing when Japan started animating things was something more akin to this animation style. If we're talking about the flashbacks to Mitsuha's past.
I I don't know because Akira doesn't look like this, and that was in the 80s.
Yeah, well, I said when they were starting out animation. I didn't say when they were starting out anime. Like so, like how
Oh,
best to
so you're
describe
saying like
this?
less polished, like this is a storyboard concept continuing, and it's not fully done of the rest of the
I'm
animation
trying.
of the film?
No, I mean more like uh oh, what's it called? Uh, like classic black and white Disney little silent film short to uh I guess what you would call Akira is kind of the difference in length of time.
Oh, okay. I guess Akira was too recent of a example.
Writer's talking about the origins of animation, not
Yeah,
like vintage anime or retro, not
as I'm
vintage.
saying, I don't
Whatever.
know a good um, example for that.
Yeah, I think that's what they're doing with this, and I agree. It's not egregious. I appreciate it. It just shows the difference a little bit to so we know what's happening. We know the difference of what's happening.
And I think
Uh,
they did a good job with what they do depict because a lot happens in a pretty short amount of time in this
oh yeah,
montage.
this was like incredibly efficient with what they managed to build for Mitsuha's character.
And it shows her starting off as a cell and splitting and growing into being born. And we see her whole life in this. Uh, really, we learn about the mom because we didn't really get anything other than she's not around up
Yeah,
to this point.
it's
So we get
implied,
some
but we
background there.
yeah,
I think it
We understand why the dad's out.
plays more again into Mitsuha being more of a main character than Taki.
I feel like they're pretty equivalent. I feel like the first half is Mitsuha, second is Taki. Kind of how I feel it with.
that's where I am
Um,
at too. I got the impression I thought Mitsuha was the main character of the first half, and then we got a lot more talking in the second. So I'm like, okay, they're just co-stars. I'm totally fine with this.
I think I'm in disagreement. If you split this movie up into 4 parts, I think the third part is Taki focused. The other 3 are Mitsuha.
I guess we are disagreeing then. So I don't think he gets a quarter. Um, what was it? Oh yeah, with the flashbacks still. And we also get information on stuff we weren't privy to, like her going to Tokyo. We have the hints to it, but now we
Yeah,
have the info to connect it.
yeah,
Uh,
to backfill everything that happens.
mhm. So I think they really utilize this pretty well.
Uh, I agree. Don't know if I have anything more to add on the past stuff because I think it's just like I said, they're very efficient with the writing aspect. You get all the important bits of Mitsuha's life for Taki to kind of understand her better.
Yeah.
All right. How are we looking on Act Two?
I have 1.5 notes left.
Crimson.
I think I just have one.
All right. Well, start with you, Springs.
All right, my half one is Taki going through the water with his shoes on. Guy's gonna get gangrene. What's he doing?
Um,
That's funny,
is that the
but
point about game?
I just went. You're pausing. Take your shoes off. He didn't like continually go. Like he stopped and thought about it. I'm like, take your shoes off, dude. You're gonna get wet socks.
I mean, he's got wet pants. It goes up
Yeah, but he
past his
treads through it. I'm
knees.
like, come on. Anyway, my actual other one is a nice little detail. I like that back in the classroom of the high school, um, with Mitsuha going through the notebook, the teacher's talking about the time of magic hour and twilight hour and the golden hour and all that in the high school classroom. And then when it goes to the shrine at the end, and they after they place the sake and they go back up to the ridge of the crater and overlook the town, Yotsuha says, "Oh, look, it's magic hour," which wasn't in the class that we've seen of her school teaching, being that it's a different grade level showing, but present with the grandma because the student in the high school class said, "Oh, my grandma calls it magic hour," and this is Yotsuha present with her grandma, and I thought that was a good detail to include.
Hmm.
yeah, and also it helps so that they both know what magic hour is as well. Going after this scene.
Most important, is it important that Yotsuha knows what magic hour is?
Yotsuha?
Yeah.
No, I'm referring to Mitsuha and Taki because Taki wouldn't know. It's not part of his culture what magic
Oh, I
hour
see.
is.
I see. Yes,
So Taki gets informed of what magic hour.
that is correct.
All right, Crimson.
Alrighty, I will go with the grandma calling out um, that he was dreaming, or she, I guess. um, someone was dreaming. She calls out uh, to Taki. There we go, in Mitsuha's body,
What's the name?
calling out the dream thing. I'm like, okay, interesting. I'm curious how we're going to learn more about the grandma here, and we do get a little bit later, but it kind of begs the question to me: is if she's noticing it here, why isn't she bringing it up to Mitsuha when Mitsuha's in her own body?
I don't know. Maybe more proof needed. It's
Yeah.
also interesting that the grandma remembers that this event's happened to her in some form and the mom in some form and now happening to Mitsuha. But then the 3 year jump at the end, Mitsuha and Taki are like so distant of memory.
I mean, they know there's something.
Yeah,
They
but
don't
it
know
seems
what
the
it is.
grandma's knowledge is stronger for years of difference of when it occurred to her than the 3 year difference of Mitsuha. Or I guess a little more
Yeah.
than 3 years. But
Is her memory more drastically different? I mean, what does she remember that they don't?
She doesn't.
Because
She's
all she
very vague
says
on.
is she remembers something happened. It's pretty
She's
much all
very
she
vague
says.
on the details. So I think she says something happened, something similar happened, and that's all I remember. Really, kind of is what she was implied.
yeah. But we know towards the jump, we don't know exactly the time jump, right? From the end of like the new timeline thing. We know it's over 3 years for Mitsuha, but how long for Taki? Because Taki could be maybe a year.
It was 5 years after they went to the town.
5 years after they went to the town.
After they went to Ishimori, that was a line that was said after the job interview for the architecture thing. It's been 5 years
It's been five.
since they
Okay,
went to
so it's been five
Ishimori.
years for Taki. It's been 8 years for Mitsuha.
Yes,
Okay.
Mhm.
I quite like that Okudera is the one that notices the bracelet that he's been wearing and it kind of jogs a bit of a faint memory for him. I just appreciate the detail that because while he's reading out the importance of the bracelets and to the culture of Itomori or I know Crimson pronounced it a different way. Um,
Ishimori.
yeah, I know he's reading up on the bracelets and Okudera is the one that points out the that he's wearing one, and he just kind of vaguely remembers someone giving it to him, and he doesn't remember much else, which is fair. It was kind of an off day for him; it just happened out of nowhere.
Well, it makes sense. It was the instance of not even 10 minutes of his life, 3 years
Yeah,
prior.
it was just a couple seconds, and he decided to yeah, the bracelet's cool. I'll keep it. But I like that it's something that it's kind of one of the clues that's of what happened almost.
Especially after
Right.
going through the book of the braids and how they act.
Yeah, yeah, and what they symbolize in their tradition. And that is my last point. So I think we're good for Act Three.
Yep.
Um, Actually, I do have one thing to note from Act Two.
You liar!
Leading, I know, I just remembered. I'm the host. So it was there's a scene where I found kind of funny and amusing, and it fits, which is where uh, Taki is gonna fondle Mitsuha again, and then he's like, you know what, I shouldn't for her sake. And then we cut to her sister opening the door to see him, um,
Going
you
at
know,
it again.
going
Boys
at it
will be
again.
boys.
Yeah, it's one of those comedy beats I like a lot, and honestly, this kind of leads into the first start of Act Three, which is when he wakes up in Mitsuha's body again, to the end of the movie, and uh, I I think we talked about this Crimson earlier. You have a it's not is it a tonal issue for you? You said
I think it's tonal and character. Because at this point in the story, we got hit pretty hard that she's dead. Um, and he took it hard. I mean, he's even crying about it. He hugged himself in her body. Uh, and then we cut to him fondling. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it cuts the tension, but why do we need that? I think it damages him because at this point, he, he respects her. I,
I don't see this character damaging, to be honest with you, because he did it every time beforehand. So he's just doing something again that he missed doing.
I'm.
Uh,
I think I'm with Ryder on it. We also don't know how long it happened. It could have been 3 seconds before the door slid open for Yotsuha to see it. and it's a familiarity of the events of being in Mitsuha's body, and I think that's fine in character. Of course, for the film, it's a good tone shift of comedy, um, with like a dramatic hit. So I think the pace of it's good, but to the character, I think it's okay. He's also an adolescent boy.
Yeah, I'm fine with the character aspect of it. I can see the
Fondling a
tonal.
dead chick's breasts is
Well,
Well,
she's
crazy.
not dead
she's
now.
not dead,
She,
dude. So
she's dead to him right now. He just
No,
no,
he just
she
realized
just
realized
woke
everything.
up in her body.
she's
She's
alive.
not dead.
It's better that the first thing Taki does is hug and not
Yeah,
fondle.
I
Yeah.
think that's all they needed.
I would
Yeah.
be on your side, Crimson, if the first thing he did was fondle.
Yeah, I would agree. If the first thing you did was fondle her, I would be on your side, Crimson. I'm fine with this as it is, and I can see the point of view on the tone part, but I just disagree because I don't think it just disrupts the flow of the film at all. Because at that point we've transitioned to his sister's POV of just him sobbing his eyes
Do you
out.
think it's one of those movie moments too, where knowing that now it worked, like the audience is kind of like that clap, like yeah, all right, let's see what happens, and then laughs, like it's a raised spirit kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that would be applicable here. It's similar to that. So it undercuts the sense of success just a little bit with a funny bit that doesn't necessarily break up the what's going on because it's something he did regularly. And I'm assuming we're just going to be agreeing to disagreeing on this one, Crimson.
Yeah, I honestly didn't think this was going to be a disagreement point. So yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, sorry. I like I said, I don't see it as out of character. I'm mind you, you're welcome to change your mind. Can recap among other things, so please feel free to do so. Um,
Great, boob touching in the recap. That's a real
I
hook for
can't
people.
wait. um, so transitioning from that to the conversation with Mitsuha's grandmother, uh, to her noticing the difference in him again, and them actually sitting down and having a conversation. Um, I quite like, I guess, the casualness of it before they have to get to work. It's kind of like the calm before the storm moment, I guess, in terms of pacing.
Did we say we're in the last act now?
Yes, I did.
Okay, cool.
He just didn't say it went to the end, but I think that's enough to
I,
infer.
I
Okay,
thought
cool.
I said I went to the end, but
I'm just checking.
all right, the Sprinks go.
Okay, this is gonna be difficult to try to. Hopefully, it's not as difficult as I have because it makes sense to me. But to you two, I know it's gonna be like a "what's the difference" kind of thing.
Right?
The
All right, I'll settle in for this one.
Yes, I'll go with the one that I like first, and then the one I don't like. I like that my emotions were on a high when we see them in the snow in Tokyo and Mitsuha has the umbrella and they cross paths and my expectation is they're gonna get that little chime of the thread thing and talk to each other and they don't and I'm like ooh you movie you're playing with my emotion here. Oh why would you do that? Are they not gonna get together? Oh come on, like playing that to me and then rewrites itself and I'm like okay, I see the reason why this is in the film. Like it's just a one-time occurrence. Like they've been close to each other and it didn't work, and shows how distant this memory has affected the two of them in a sense until the last scene where it's like give the shot and try because something feels different or something feels like a connection.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, it's really playing with me. And I like that for the emotion it goes with that to play with the audience. I don't like the emotional hit that I sure people get when they are in the magic hour and Taki's idea is, hey, let's write each other's names on each other's hands so we don't forget. And he writes on Mitsuha's hand, and Mitsuha begins to write on his hand, and magic hour ends. And I'm like, oh, magic hour, you tricky devil. But when Mitsuha opens her palm and it says, I love you, and not Taki's name, I was so pissed at Taki.
All right,
Okay, so now you lead into why you're mad at him.
Because, first off, he lied. Secondly, it doesn't help writing "I love you" if it's not to go to the proof of the answer to try to find each other as a last resort into his whole discussion with her in the magic hour. It felt very movie moment of the relationship thing, and it's like, oh, because he didn't write his name to give a chance to find him, it's to play off like, oh, the love and of his feelings for her, and it's like, oh, very sweet and soft, but it also in the moment of realization, it's like, oh, that's a cut off connection. Now it's like there is nothing to go or work with of this stranger now in your head that loves you and has his feelings for you that you can't work to in this whole plan to survive to meet each other. And it just makes it far more difficult than to not give a reason to find one another. And I thought that was so stupid.
Um, well, I saw that scene completely different than you then, because the way I saw it when I saw that said "I love you," like, oh, okay, he didn't think his plan was going to work. He thought it was going to fail, and history happened. He can't change it.
He was setting up for
So,
failure.
No,
uh, no,
he's
that's not
just
what I said at all. Uh, but he tried, and then he didn't think it would work after all the setbacks that were happening. Right. So that it's kind of the way I picture it is like in a movie or show when two characters are like near like about to die, and one's like, "All right, let's do this together," and then they shove the person to safety, and then they sacrifice themselves, type deal. Um, I see that as a parallel to this. That's kind of where my mindset is.
yeah, he's saying "I love you" not to help her. He's saying it to say goodbye because he doesn't think the plan will work.
I don't. I didn't get that with the words he was using or the emotion played off of Taki. It didn't seem any
When
hesitation or choking back tears, knowing in his character that it wouldn't work for him to lie to her to protect her and not hurt her more of a failure of the plan not working, I guess, in his mind, but what you're saying, to then write "I love you" instead of his name in the plan to find each other when, they vanish from one another in sight. Because I'd have a good feeling that Mitsuha was going to write Mitsuha on Taki's hand and not "I love you" back.
possible, we don't know. I would imagine she probably would have, but we
Uh,
don't get any
so
confirmation on
there's
that.
there's there's two facets to this because I actually I'm gonna be the middleman again. I actually both interpretations I think are completely valid with what we have. You can be very angry at Taki for not giving her her name and not evidently in Crimson's case not being as hopeful as she is that the planet will work so they can find each other. Um, and I think it still works in that scenario because it's supposed to support her in a low, but but yeah, you can definitely still be angry at Taki and I think rightfully so for not giving that information. Um,
Well, before the magic hour swaps them in the half day, right? Because it starts off with Taki in the morning to the magic hour and then swaps to Mitsuha finishing the rest of the plan throughout the day.
Throughout the rest of the night. I mean,
yeah,
Yeah.
coming
I
night.
think so.
So the morning showing proof of a revisited day for Taki, isn't that enough to already show he's making a difference in the time being present and not
No,
like
because he didn't
things
know
are
if that already
rewriting
happened.
history?
He has no
Well,
proof that anything's been rewritten.
remember everything's faded, so it's just a luck as he figures out about the disaster. We kind of get backfilled with it in information on that. So he doesn't know his role in it because he doesn't remember his role.
He has no information that he can actually change time. That's not stopping him. He's trying to do that, but he has no proof that he's actually affecting anything.
Even at the end, when it worked, he doesn't know that it was him who did it because the memory of it faded, or the dreamlike aspect of it faded.
Okay.
But I will agree, it's very interpretive. I do think both of our ways of seeing it is applicable.
I just don't
Which
see
does make it hard to critique it.
Taki's character of trying to be with Mitsuha, especially the whole road trip trek to try to find her, would result in him giving up that it's not going to work in his character to write that on her hand.
Yeah, I think the thing is he's near giving up at that point because of all the setbacks he constantly receives throughout the day. Like, being they're having difficulty setting up the broadcasting booth, or her Mitsuha's dad kind of shot him down. So like he's received quite a few setbacks on his original plan. So at least as far as that interpretation, I think there is plenty enough there to imply that variation of what we're interpreting as to why he wrote "I love you."
But what
I think
of the plan at the point of Magic Hour up to that point has made him change thinking the plan's not going to work? Because he's involved other people.
right, but like I said, he's already gotten setbacks. He knows the mayor is not going to cooperate,
Yeah, that's why they're
and
going
that's kind
against
of
him.
right. They're doing it without him, but they know that they need his help and cooperation. They're going to do it anyway. Is the plan? But he knows that it's going to be worthless if the mayor shuts them down. And he already knows the mayor has shut them down. So the only thing he has to hope for now is that Mizuha can change his mind. But he has no guarantee of that.
To me, that just seems too drastic of a depression or a setback of lack of hope in the Magic Hour scene onto Taki's character, and it doesn't seem represented in that way to me.
I mean, you can interpret his breakdown as him having to say goodbye. Because remember our perspective. Well, the other perspective is that he was said "I love you" as a way of saying goodbye.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like there's much build up to that to me of his decision to do so.
I mean, it's. I mean, all I could say is that there is setup for it there. But like I said, I don't really have an issue with how you interpret it because I think both are valid. So the only difference in your version is that Taki is an idiot, and or in your version is that Taki is an idiot for saying "I love you" instead of actually writing his name down.
Yes.
Yeah. So the reason I prefer, I guess, the other version is I lean more towards Crimson's version is of as an explanation. The reason I lean more towards that is because neither character is an idiot. Suddenly, they're both in character. They're both more in character, I guess, in that version.
Hmm. It just
Um,
it just did not match. At least a little bit of what I'm getting from Crimson. It did not match the whole Black Widow and Hawkeye quarrel back and forth of like someone's going to die in Endgame.
huh?
He's gone to my parallel I made about two people fighting and one shoving one away to
Yeah.
Okay.
sacrifice. Um, no, I very much do see it in a similar light. Not to the extreme of like they're both gonna die, but the sentiment I kind of see the same.
I will jump to, I guess, one of my problems with this final act. I don't know if I needed to see Mitsuha's father reacting to her, like whatever she says, but I do think we needed to see whatever Mitsuha was going to tell her father.
Oh, before the impact of the meteor.
Yeah, to convince him to evacuate the town. I did feel that for me that was cutting the character arc short. I
Well,
don't think we needed to see the father's reaction, but I think I would have liked to see. I think Mitsuha's reaction was important for her character arc or for her character, her part of that conversation.
So yeah, since we see their relationship and how
yeah.
strained it is, and how he treats her, thinking the whole time it was her until he's like, "Who are you?" with Taki.
Taki.
I do think an explanation of how she flipped him, or how Taki could have by saying, "I'm someone else." I don't know. We cut away from that question of "Who are you?"
You're right.
um,
I was gonna say
so some explanation
without the scene
would
of
be nice.
Teshi, I was not understanding what you were going with. But Teshi cements that, yeah, of
Mhm.
he was in the zone to be hit with, and because of his father, he said, "Oh, end of the line, I'm not going." But he was trying to evacuate people out of that danger area, but he survives. So that that does imply then that yes, the father did get evacuation to go, so Teshi could survive.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the whole conspiracy thing that's brought up later with the news.
It was a drill that they ran.
Yeah, an emergency drill that just happened to coincide. I don't know what the conspiracy you could formulate with that. That'd be interesting.
Listen, people have really active imaginations, right?
True.
I'm fine with the conspiracy forming around it because it would seem like government propaganda. Um,
Was it even a comet?
yeah. So I think for me I do think Mizuha's story is undercut a little bit with at least removing how she flipped her father into at least convincing the town that it's a drill. It's efficient. I mean, we cut from that to the meteor striking. So like we definitely keep the ramped up pace. Um, but like I said, I don't need to see her father's reaction, but because we can imply what happened with what comes later on. But I would have liked to see Mitsuha talk to her father because it might just be that Mitsuha is just very, very timid when it comes to her father. Because we do see at least some hints of that earlier in the film. But I would have liked, I would, it would have made her character felt a little more complete by the end.
I agree.
Yes,
Uh,
to give reason.
yeah,
However, the
uh,
use of silence on the impact of the meteor, I think, is really good.
I agree.
Yeah, you
I
have the
did,
whole music ramping it up. Then nothing.
Nothing.
yeah. I agree. I like when, like I said, I like the contrast. Sometimes you just let the impact of the art roll over you.
It's like Shutter Island when the music's ramping up when he reaches the lighthouse door and then he opens it and then the music
It's,
cuts out.
yeah.
Is this just anime Shutter Island?
Okay, let's not do that. All right. Crimson, why don't you jump somewhere?
They both have characters that have identity crisis.
Oh, he's still going.
I know. So,
Uh, all right, so okay, on the train, uh, when uh, Mi- bleh, bleh, bleh.
Yeah, I remember that.
Mitsuha,
yeah.
yeah, went up to Taki, and he's looking through like
Note
a note
cards?
cards something. Um, it was written in English, what was on there for at least the dub. I don't know if you guys read what it said.
I did
What did it say?
not.
It said, "I'm looking for a counterpart."
Oh,
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So that was kind of a neat little detail because it's pretty small. I had to like zoom in on my screen to read it, but it was there.
That's cool. I like that. Definitely, again, very star-crossed lovers feel.
Destiny
Or
was right in
comic.
front
I
of
think we
her.
should call them comic crossed, but that's just me.
Yeah, come
crossed.
across. There you go. Coin that new term. So yeah, that
um,
was pretty much it. Observation I saw.
let's see. Sprinks, why don't you go?
Okay. If if Mitsuha got Taki's name on her hand, could it result to then knowing 3 years in the future that Taki would have gone to the sake to do this, to attempt the swap, which is where Mitsuha would have been over in Taki's body before the magic hour swap part there, of possibly creating a paradox of Mitsuha meeting her younger self.
I'm gonna go with
But
no because the remember all the memories are going to fade, so she would only have the name Taki, nothing else. She might not even
Yes,
know that it is a name at a
but if
certain
she
point.
could look up Taki and figure out who it is within those 3 years, would well, she'd probably change the outcome of that timeline by interacting. She probably wouldn't
Yeah.
observe. But if she did observe to know where Taki's going, or lo and behold, coincidentally find out who Taki is upon the time Taki's going to the shrine, could have resulted into meeting her younger 3-year self in Taki's body.
Uh,
That's assuming they coexist. I don't know at what point the universe changes. I don't know if it's like Marvel where they hopped universes or if it was just a corrected timeline. Um, we don't really get much of an answer on that.
yeah,
Trying to think.
I think it's possible, Springs. I don't think she could get to that point though, because she's going to have nothing to work with other than a word on her hand by the end of the day. If it was written Taki,
Yes.
I think the result would still be
Trying
the
to,
same. She'll be just like, "What is this? Well, who?"
yeah, I'm trying to go with what Crimson just said. I think the time shifts when, because Mitsuha in Taki's body never goes back to the shrine, but we do see Taki waking up in the shrine.
Yeah, Taki wakes up at the shrine with no memory of what happened,
Yes,
and that he drank sake.
I think that's the instance of the timeline change,
Oh, you mean like how
Which
people
means
would
they wouldn't have been able to
remember, quote
interact.
unquote, the
which
time
means they
change?
wouldn't have met.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you're referring more to how people might remember the timeline change, right?
No, I'm going with the instance that when before the
Factors
magic
interact.
hour and Mitsuha is in Taki's body, is the 3-year older Mitsuha in that world? And I think I'm now landing on that. No, this is still Taki's timeline where she is dead.
Yeah.
You're talking about where it changes over with all the
Where
history
it
changing
updates
and
with the new
everything.
Yes,
timeline.
the updated
Yeah,
timeline goes with Taki
yeah,
awakening in the shrine.
yes. I would agree. Once he wakes up with no memory of what happened the previous night, I think that's when the new timeline had started, or where it was. Um, they were in the new timeline at that point. So all the changes that needed to happen beforehand had occurred.
Okay.
Uh,
Alright. I
or
if there's
or
one.
yeah, it might be that he was always living in that timeline with her, because we see them together at the beginning, the older versions of themselves just going about their daily lives before all this happens. So it might be he's always lived in the corrected timeline, but he only got involved with through the spiritual faith to keep the timeline correct. So like it was a auto correction that needed to
That
happen almost.
gets into the point Sprinks was trying to make is if they could have interacted. But I think it is a corrected timeline scenario and not that she's been there the whole time.
Uh,
Yes.
Because
and
the in that timeline, he went to check the records of the
yeah,
event. There were 500 dead people. Um, so I think it is a corrected timeline.
yeah, it has. It I agree. It has to be corrected timeline because all of the research, quote unquote, that they did after he realized what happened to the town, because all that would have changed and have been in different. Uh, there was only like one or two casualties, as far as I remember, in the corrected timeline.
Yeah, a few deaths. All right. I'll bring up a question that I don't think has an answer, and I've been tackling since watching it if it's an objective issue or not. And that's why they're connected, why this happens at all.
Well,
I
the
don't have
braid.
an answer.
I don't know why it starts, but the braid connection is why the two are connected.
You mean more mystically, right, Crimson?
Pretty much any metric, really. I mean, like Springs, you're saying braid is the answer. How does that work?
The ribbon connected to Mitsuha given to um, Taki on the train is the connected cord of the red thread, and it is a red thread here, so I don't know if the red is actually a symbolic color to go with it, but of the tradition and lesson that the grandma said, and then Okudera says in the book of what's occurred and what's held as lore or not necessarily a magic system, but like stories and folklore of this world and tradition, and this is a cause of that to go with it. Of course, it's completely what's the word? Not nonchalant, but just like not seen as anything other than just happenstance of the time where Taki gets the braid and just keeps it. But that connection is what is set him on the course to be connected as these two, um, which is the magic I think connected into that item. But I don't know why it starts on a day or the random day to make it start, because Taki said every couple weeks they swap bodies, but how long has that been happening to go up to the comet hitting on Mitsuha's timeline event to cut it off? I don't know what starts it.
You said
Was the
every
dad a
couple.
mayor by the end, or was he not mayor yet?
Uh, I He was ordering around the town, opposed to someone else already in the position. So
He was the incumbent, meaning that he was running again. He was already mayor.
yeah.
So he's trying to keep his position as mayor.
Yeah. Yes. He's trying to
Um,
keep his position as mayor.
so that doesn't help with the timeline, because if he isn't reelected yet, that means we know it's before the 20th of March. But if he is reelected as mayor, then we know it goes past that, but we don't have an answer that I'm aware of for
Yeah.
that.
I
Um,
will say one more thing real quick. You keep saying every couple of weeks, Springs. They switch a couple of times a week.
Yes, but it's gone on for some weeks. It hasn't said months or over a year.
No. Okay. No. I'm just saying the way you're phrasing it
Sorry,
was
yes,
what
they
was.
changed about 2 times a week, but how many weeks it's been, don't know.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's been about I would say at least 2 months, but I'm not 100% sure about that either. So
yeah. We only have the mayor thing as a metric, and they don't tie that down
Yeah,
to
and
anything.
kind of the weather.
Yeah. Well,
kinda.
was there a date of when the comet was going to crash?
They said the comet. Yes, they give a time frame for the comet, but not an exact date.
Oh, darn. If they gave a date for that, we could have
Yeah, they don't
extrapolated.
give a date. Well, unless
Yeah.
you go with the phone of the last entry.
Do you know what date that was?
Nope.
I didn't see it. Darn. Um, I guess back on the ribbon track. Uh, like, the passing it on the train isn't the beginning of their timeline. The reason they even go there in the first place is because they've been swapping bodies. So it's not like that
Mitsuha, at that
kick-started.
point, was swapping the bodies.
Yeah, it's not like that kick-started everything. That happened because it's already been happening.
But
Yeah.
that's well, that's the difference of the 3-year span thing. That's how it connects into um, the body of Taki being the chosen for the future to line up with the years of the 3-year difference. I don't know what, as I said, I don't know what causes the start of the swap, and I don't know what's chosen for the 3-year being the time frame. It's kind of like
Yeah.
the Back to the Future thing where people say like, "Oh, Marty's friends with Doc, but how did they meet? How did they become friends? Why is Doc's friend with a kid?" Well, it's because Marty went back in time and found Doc to help him, and that's how they met, kind of thing. So Marty already knew Doc. Doc didn't know Marty. It's kind of the same thing here, where Mitsuha knows Taki. Taki doesn't know Mitsuha. It's not till the future where they know each other. I think that's what it's playing with.
Yeah, I don't think so, but they don't clear to define this stuff anyways. So,
Yeah.
which is
It's
why I was
it's
like, I don't think there's a direct answer they provide,
yeah.
which
The
is why I was
best.
tackling if it's an objective issue or not.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of the thing with me, right? Is like where I'm always down for soft magic systems. So for me, as long as it's internally consistent with what they're playing with. And this is mostly is I think we've talked about the little nudges like the or the particular because it's not flawless like the idea the tech the notes on his phone just disappear, convenient but needed to have a particular story. And so there is stuff littering there's little nicks to would it be a fairly consistent I think soft core magic system. Um, so I don't know. I don't really necessarily take the the idea of them being tied together as an objective issue. I take more issue with
Trigger.
the flaws in what's presented, if that makes sense. Because I mean, if a wizard points at a dragon and says fireball and he casts fireball, that's just how the magic system works is. But if we see that magic and then he says the word fireball again and it shoots out a ball of snow, that would be inconsistent with itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, I understand
Yes.
that.
Okay.
That's something we talked about the magic system and practical magic with, way
Yeah.
back when.
Midnight
Way back
Margaritas?
when.
Um, yeah, Midnight with Margaritas.
Yeah.
Put the lime in the coconut.
So yeah, sorry, you go on.
I'm just trying to think of the trigger. I think that's my biggest thing on it.
Yeah.
Why does this happen? You can say fate and stuff, but then it goes into what Spring said of why did it take 3 years, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Something has to be a trigger.
Yeah, and it doesn't have any explanation to the family connection other than it's happened to Mitsuha's family of like what's the connection or the story of the mom when she went through this experience or the grandma's experience. It's not showing a backstory to that to the audience to understand more. Even if the character doesn't understand or like is very loosey goosey and very reminiscent on like what occurred, that's fine, but it doesn't show the audience of the event if it has to be a 3-year thing or how that's connected, if it's to the meteor, because then the meteor depicts to
The
the
trigger
Miyagora's story.
the trigger for Mitsuha, and I get this because her family's special, is she makes that loud particular wish underneath the shrine as she's leaving, which is she wishes she was gonna be a Tokyo boy in her next life or what have you. Um, so that for me is Mitsuha's trigger because that's when Mitsuha starts dreaming. I got nothing for Taki other than the braided cord
Well,
that was
isn't
given to him as the trigger for when they need to start swapping over to each other.
but isn't that wish said after the day or after the day of Taki already being in her body for her friends to say you
Yes.
acted different the day before?
Yeah, yeah. That's what I'm saying. I think that's Mitsuha's trigger. My best guess for Taki's trigger would is the cord that you've already suggested. And it just wasn't a relevant trigger until both sides of it were connected with Mitsuha's, up until this point.
I'd agree with you, but it's still a day off.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have anything for Taki's trigger. I got Mitsuha's. If we're looking for Crimson's triggers here, I don't know if I got one for Taki. My best guess is Mitsuha's trigger was the wish under the shrine. I don't know if I don't have anything for Taki's trigger, just based on time wise, outside of the red band. But as you say, that's a day off.
Yeah, Crimson couldn't tell you.
Yeah, just a small little point,
Hmm.
Mm, I
Mhm.
would say it's a little
Like I
more than
said,
small. It's kind
Well,
of
so it
it's
it's
is.
a big thing of this movie.
it's a
Yes,
big
it
thing in
is.
this movie, and we're tackling whether it's an objective issue,
Well, it's certainly
or at
wanted,
least
but is it needed? The movie still works without it needing to be present.
yeah. That's like I said, for me, that's not without the trigger rule. I think, like I said, my issues again is just with how this setup and whether it's consistent with itself with what we are given, and I think most of it is, except for like the nicks that we have pointed out over the course of the coverage. I think I don't think it's an objective flaw, but that's from my scale.
I'm in agreement. It's not an objective flaw with the thing of like magic systems where this is a piece of magic that isn't told, and because it's not told, it's just questioned. But it's not something that is told and then doesn't match with what is being told, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not inconsistent with itself in this particular way. I guess is my issue. Or I guess my not that I have an issue with what you're trying to get at, Crimson. I just don't think I'm going to be able to help you figure out if it's an objective problem for yourself
I'm
because
just
I
trying
don't.
to think. Like you gave the wizard shooting a fireball at a dragon, and I'm just thinking, like, what if we don't know he's a wizard, and a fireball just comes out of nowhere and hits the dragon? I would see that as an issue.
Out of
But
nowhere
if
or
it's
out of the wizard
explained,
not knowing.
out of us not knowing that the wizard's a wizard, right?
Okay.
Because that the wizard in this scenario is the trigger. We don't know what the triggers are for the whole events of this movie. Um, so I do feel like there's an element of, even if you don't know how the magic works, there's an element of, even if you don't have it, it can still be an objective flaw, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing.
Uh,
Um,
I guess when I'm landing, we'll save that for the ratings.
well, I mean, well, you don't have to talk about where you're landing with the ratings, but I mean, you can, I guess, explain your point a little bit more if you want, because I kind of get what you're saying with the wizard. You need to have a base amount of information, but the
Like,
base amount of
we know the
information we are
fireball is magic and it fights the dragon. We know this body swap thing is magic and it's tied to destiny, but we don't
fate,
know how
whatever you
this
insert.
happened. Yeah, that's our fate. But we don't know how this happened. The fireball, we don't know how it happened because the fireball just shows up. Um, so I do think there's an element where,
So
even though
the
you have magic, knowing something about it can be objectively an issue.
right.
And just saying, it's a soft magic, we don't need it." I'd say, well, there are situations with soft magic where you do kind of need it, though.
Okay. So I guess my question is, what is needed then?
Just the
You're
trigger that
looking
we've
for
been
a
talking about.
trigger.
Yeah.
You're looking for a trigger, but it doesn't need a trigger from what we've discussed.
You want your answer to the question. And of course, the answer to the question of what is the trigger, possibly I'm leaning would strengthen this movie as long as it's consistent with what's given. But I'm
Yeah.
with Ryder that
I
it's not needed for the story that we have.
I agree that it would strengthen the movie that it's there, but it's not needed for the story given. So I hmm, I don't know if I can rephrase my question for you because I think I already gave it to you. Um.
I'll sit on it. I'm sure we have
Okay.
more talking points.
It's one of the bigger ones. Uh. Uh. Good. Good. Teshi's a good side character. We don't get more. He doesn't overstay his welcome. Um. But I do like that the little bits of him that we do get are just him like, "All right, so you're really sure that thing's gonna fall, right?" And then he commits to, arson.
Yeah, but then he gets scared of his dad. He goes, all right,
Well,
end of the line.
I mean, I'm sure his dad noticed the explosives were missing. I think he would definitely be a little bit scared. Um, possibly, anyway, possibly.
Yeah, but Teshi's like pulling up the map and like double checking everything with Taki and Mitsuha's body and like the trajectory of everything. He knows that when his dad stops him, he's in the blast radius. So just because his dad like shakes him awake from a fantasy kind of thing of like your friend's lunacy of a meteor crashing and killing us all, he just goes, oh well, you know, authority.
I mean,
To me, he drops it
it's
pretty fast.
I don't know. We cut away from it is the problem. I don't really know we need to see anything more of that because because we do see in one of the shots where we cut away, we see him arguing with his dad, yelling about the meteor. So
Yes,
he
but
didn't
what we
drop
get,
it.
no, but what we get is the cut of Mitsuha herself going to her dad, and then the meteor hitting. But then later, Teshi's alive, so
Yeah,
evacuation was made for Teshi and more than likely his dad to get and everyone to get out of that area. So authority made them move. It wasn't
yeah,
a scene where Teshi ran from his dad on his own to save his own life, kind of thing.
yeah. Which is fair. I think he'd want to try to save his dad's life, but you see him. There was a shot of him where he's arguing and pointing at the meteor comet with his dad beside him. So I don't think he gave up easily. He's not trying to run away from it. He's trying to get his dad to help, or he's trying to convince him. It's silent. What we see, we just see that he's yelling at his dad for something, trying to explain it.
Yeah.
I will jump to. Uh, I guess I'll jump to. Taki's new job. He's trying to get a job as a, I guess what may potentially as an architect, but he's like trying to submit artwork of trying to help people with Lost Town, which is interesting. It works out in a weird way for him. He's so drawn to something about this artistic practice that he did. He drew what he called was a an image of an old town that was destroyed. I think that fits for him being having to be strung along a little bit by fate here.
Yeah, and especially with
Um,
the talk earlier of the cafe I brought up of like his friends are very architectural in conversation. It just seems like that's Taki's world kind of thing to focus set on.
mhm. Uh, do you got a point you want to jump to, Crimson? We're
Sure.
still thinking on it over there.
Well, yes and yes. Jump. I'll jump to Tashi and Zaya are at the cafe, talking about what was it, wedding plans or something. Um, and I was just thinking, well, this is quite convenient, isn't it? Uh, and they're not necessarily tied with the fate ribbon, right? Kind of
Yeah,
tangentially, I guess, but
that one I
they're-
would label as convenience. I got
Yes, but it's
uh,
believable.
elaborate.
It's been 5 years of the event, and it's a random occurrence of Tokyo, and no one's like leaving the city. I mean, they're still around, and even Teshi says earlier when he's asked when they're in their makeshift vending machine cafe, he'll just says always be around in this town, not really go anywhere. So them staying put, kind of in the country, but moving out of the town is kind of like a nice little change of them. Um, but it just seems like it's just a random occurrence, and it's believable to me in the country, especially over a span of time.
I think the time makes it worse because in 5 years, that's time to go anywhere. What the odds of them just going to Tokyo and happening to cross at this cafe at the same time? It's not like right after the incident and people got ushered into Tokyo and they just happened to meet there. I find that is more of a higher chance. But 5 years, that so much has changed in 5 years. They could go. They could go to America. They could go anywhere.
Well,
Uh,
possibly, but it'll also play in. I don't think they might explain it, but I don't. I think I missed the detail. But don't know if Teshi's house was destroyed, and it was one of the districts. Well, his dad was there, so probably get his dad out of the district where it was destroyed to evacuate. So his house probably was destroyed in the town. So they relocated possibly to Tokyo, and Teshi said like he'll stay in one location, but if his location of the original town is gone, he had to relocate. So it seems fitting to me that he's going to stay wherever he is because that's what he said earlier.
I'll be honest. It's convenient that they happen to be at the same cafe at the same hour, the same time, the same day, same minute, that sort of thing. That's what I find convenient. I'm fine with him still being in Tokyo.
it's no Batman. Dark Knight Rises cafe scene.
You know what? Well, that
Ooh,
that
That has
that's true.
that
that's
has some
very
setup to why characters interact, or not necessarily
that is
interact,
true,
but
but I can speak from actual experience that this has happened with Ryder and I,
that is
where
true.
we're
That
in two
has happened
separate
to us.
towns, and happenstance we're at the same time in the same restaurant, unplanned.
Uh,
I mean,
yeah,
anything's possible. I'm not saying
yeah.
it's impossible, but
It's
odds
just
are
the
very small.
Yeah, it's just odds. Like I said, it's not it doesn't damage the film for me. It's just I write it down as a convenience. Because I mean, when we both showed up to see Avengers Endgame on the same day, I had just finished, and you guys rolled up to
Oh yeah, I
watch it
forgot
for the
about that one
third
as well.
time. Yeah, that is very convenient that we all ended up on the same location at the same time, where I had finished Avengers Endgame, and you guys are going in for either your second or third viewing, or I think it was your second or third viewing, and but yeah, so like I said, it's convenient still that we all ended up there. The whoever's writing our life stories is having a laugh, but so I there is definitely an element of like this is convenient, but it doesn't damage anything necessarily, which is why I'm like I think this is fine. But it's still being a convenience is labeled as a convenience.
Yes.
Then, Sprinks, you touched on them crossing paths and kind of a fake out for the audience of them actually not meeting up, because I had the same thought as you, like, oh, this is it. They're going to see each other, and then nothing comes of it. Uh, I didn't like the second time they did that though on the stairs. That kind of
Right before they
annoyed me.
turn around.
Yeah, because they saw each other on the train, and then they ran to try to convene somewhere, which I don't know how they managed to find each other at these stairs, but I found that kind of convenient too. But they look for each other, they run, and then they meet here, and then they walk past each other. I'm like, well, I don't think you needed that fake out twice, and this one has less reason behind it to me than the first one.
Yeah. Um, the first one I actually very much like. I think this one it came across like they were both testing like whatever that chime is. They were both testing just the feeling in the air, and then they, once it didn't happen, they realized they had. Well, at least Taki realized he needed to actually commit to talking to them. So I don't know. I don't know if I'd call this one a fake out. It felt more like they were testing it, whatever it is.
The train, I think, helps cement that there is a physical connection of familiarity between the two of them and not just a feeling like when they were in the snow on the bridge.
Hmm.
Because on the bridge, there isn't like, there's no Meet Joe Black scene where they keep looking behind to see the other one who's not looking at them kind of thing. Neither one turn around. Whereas the train shows an actual physical presence of someone that they have some kind of connection to that they go to try to find. And of course, with the memory thing, when they see each other on the stairs, they walk past each other, which I found a little weird. If the train thing had a connection of physically seeing each other, why wasn't the stairs seeing each other if they're going to walk past each other?
Hmm.
But I think it just plays with like something is subconsciously connected in their mind of together that Taki like just asked the question.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. So, um, I do think it's. I was gonna say it's convenient they end up in the same spot. I don't have the geography because they could have just gotten out at two different ends of a station, but I'm not. I can't even commit to that because we're not really shown the geography of the station where they run off from each other.
What we see is how fast the trains are zooming by each other.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Oh no. This better not be a Paperman situation again.
All
it
I'm
might
saying
be
is
a
I don't think it's at the same station.
yeah. It'd be weird if it uh yeah I'm not sure. It might be like they both ended up at opposite stations and started running back to the original one.
I do
Um,
like the detail though, I guess, at the end where they cross each other's kind of at the middle of the stairs, and Taki does get to the top of the stairs before turning to say anything. You, as he turns, we see that as soon as he passed Mitsuha, she stays on the stairs. She
she
didn't walk all the
stops.
way down.
Yeah, she stops. Or
Yeah,
yeah, like I said, that's it. Kind of gives me like the whole they're testing something feeling rather than like faking it out.
Yeah,
I
Uh,
like how they're both crying, but they don't really know why.
yeah. The nervousness
We
of
don't
meeting
really
a
know why.
stranger.
yeah, they're both introverts. uh, I guess before I move on to a different point, another abstract metaphor for you, Crimson. Remove the wizard out entirely. It's just a fireball fighting the dragon. To keep it super abstract, I guess, of what's going on.
That's writer. That's stupid. Sorry, I don't mean to say stupid. It's really silly imagining a bottle of whiskey fighting a dragon.
Sure, let's go with that. Did I say whiskey?
Awesome.
You said fireball,
Fireball
but
whiskeys.
Oh, got it. uh,
Okay,
just to,
no wizard. Fireball. All right.
yeah. No, I'm just adding a little more onto your abstraction because I think the counterpoint you made was we don't know that he's a wizard. Uh, so I'm drawing it back a little bit further to make it more abstract to just a fireball fighting a dragon. With that, I will come to a different point. Um, I I guess it quite uh the wind down overall from the like the pace up into the meteor hits to what happens after. I like that uh Okudera didn't just drop out of his life, but you can see that is married now and that she's
Yeah, I
moved on.
think that was a good thing
So
to
it's
add.
clear that it's clear that they have a very
They have a
they still have a
friendship,
good
but they're not
friendship.
romantically involved.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and it's a nice little calming wind down for an epilogue following the fallout of the the impact.
Yeah.
Sprinks, why don't you go?
Yeah, I don't have many left, but I do have kind of a science question that they get touched
Oh
on in the
boy.
news. They state that no scientific trajectory was made of the comet. Or sorry, not comet, comet, going around because it happens every 1200 years. So the one that occurred during Miyagora's time went around. But if the Shrine to Miyagora, the depiction of what Crimson brought up, is the one in there, shows a split of the comets, which is what we're going with of why there's a crater in that mountain for the shrine to be taking place of a split of impact from Miyagora's fire story of 1200 years prior. Then with this one of a second coming of the comet to also have a split in it, but not talked about on the news that it split the last time it came across, for a trajectory to then be made of the prior one. If this new one split, it makes sense that this new one splits and they don't know the exact where it's going to impact because they don't have enough time to come up with it. But off of pattern, they should know that it's occurred beforehand, unless the one depicted in the shrine is the one that hits the town with Mitsuha to kill her, and it's not the one that occurred with Miyagora. But then that plays into
I'll
why would Miyagora somehow see, 12,000 or sorry, 1200 years into the future.
I don't know why you would think 1,200 years ago would be easily referenced. Because even the grandma doesn't even reference the first one being a broken comet. Um, so even if the grandma who knows all the lore around the place
Alright.
doesn't even reference it, why the heck with the news?
Okay. So there's that aspect to this, and then you have to remember it might not have split the let's assume the fire happened 1200 years ago or whatever, right? We can assume that one might have been a split. But what's to say that the shrine one was a split was the same one? What if the shrine was there earlier than that? So um
Like the one depicted in the shrine is another
I'm trying to
1200 prior.
well, it could be more than that. What if it was like 3200 prior? So like it happened every other one
They did
almost.
say this comet passes by every 1,200 years. So.
Yeah, so like saying this comet could have been flying over back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, and also dropped a comet in the similar spot, and also broke off in a similar spot. Because from as far as I understand, there's two craters before this impact. There's the lake that's kind of at the center of the town, because that looks to me like a crater lake, even
Oh, I
before it
didn't even
hit.
piece that together.
It looks to me like a crater lake even before we see it through Taki's eyes upon arriving to the town. And then we have the
Hashi
one where
even said that the lake was a crater.
oh, it was okay. And then and then there we have the one with obviously that's around the shrine. So my theory with the comet is that it might drop, it might break off every. I would presume it happens before even the one around Mishigori's fire, which I assume would be the lake one.
Possibly.
So the one from the shrine would be from even before then, like in
I
BC
I think
era
I
kind
would
of
I
thing.
think those would be flipped. I think the town one would have been earlier because the shrine, as the grandma said, was the 1200 years prior of Miyagoro's fire, which is why they're visiting it, in honor of it. And that would have been the 1200 years of the shrine to be made to be present. So it impacted their destroying something related to Miyagoro for the story of Miyagoro's fire. Well, that's the connection I made out of it. But the one depicted in it could have been one prior, I guess, going with what you're saying. It's a possibility. I always thought it as or I guess I still think of it as the one
Yeah,
that hit Miyagoro for the shrine to
yeah.
be there
All I
to
know is
depict,
all I
and
know
not
is
one for the future.
yeah, all I know is that as far as the news broadcast, as far as news broadcast goes, they do track the comet's trajectory across Japan and how it would be viewed and visible. But they're unable to track the part that splits off because there's not enough time
Yes. Yeah,
to
that's what
to
I'm going with.
track
The
that.
the original meteor is not going to make contact with the Earth in any way. The split is what causes it, and they can't measure that in time.
Okay.
Yeah, the news said that it'd be unpredictable to have known it would have split.
Uh, all right. I'm think I'm out for the final act here. I'm running it through my head. Oh, no, I got one. Um I like I guess Mitsuha's realization that she died, cuz the implication is that and this is going to get weird for the time stuff again. Um it's kind of implied that she was pulled out of her body like right as she's looking up at the meteor into Taki's body.
It's hard to say if she got pulled out or if that's her remembering that.
Oh,
Yeah,
I see.
it's
Kind of
not
hard to say
yeah,
which, but
Maybe. Yeah,
yeah,
she can remember it, so odds are she probably got pulled from it.
yeah.
yeah.
One of the two. Um but I also appreciate her kind of freaking out a little bit.
As
Uh
one should.
as one should, yeah. um So it's one of those things where it just makes the characters feel a little bit more, for lack of better words, human. Like they just feel real that
Yeah.
way when they're having natural reactions
Well,
to something like that.
it plays into uh Mitsuha reacting to the situation, not like Teshi just word of mouth, but actually knowing the existence of it, like Taki, because Taki knows it's occurred. But
Yeah,
until the swap of Mitsuha knowing the impact and killing her, then when she goes back and swap of like the midday thing to change the correction, she's in the same mindset Taki was of like this is going to occur kind of thing, rather than just hearsay.
yeah. Like she knows for sure now.
Yeah, personal preference thing, I don't think the movie needs it at all, but I would have enjoyed before her looking over and seeing the cratered area where her village was, a little bit more time of her trying to figure out why Toki was Toki
Taki.
Taki, why Taki was at the shrine because to her there's not really any reason for him to be there. And
Yeah,
she's like, "What's he doing here?" And then she walks over and sees the crater. Like, "Oh, I would have liked to have had
I
more of
because
her thought
like
process." But
show her leaving, like putting the sake back and wondering why it's covered in mold, and then walking up like and down the.
Well, is it also
Oh no, wait,
depicted that this is Mitsuha's first time at the shrine?
no, Mitsuha has been to the shrine before, but this is her first time being to the shrine in this movie because Taki took her place initially.
Then that just okay. It just makes it weird then with the grandma travel thing. Why would the grandma reveal so much information if it wasn't their first time?
Well, the implication is she didn't notice until the. Oh, you mean why she was just talking and rambling?
Yes, because she's talking
Well,
to Taki, but it's not said that she knows that's Taki in Mitsuha's body, which makes
she's
sense
explaining to the
to
little
explain
sister.
it.
Yeah, she's
Oh, so
explaining to
it's
the little sister.
Yotsuha's first time?
Yes, it is Yotuha's first time.
Okay, I wish they'd better depicted that.
Like she, and also we've seen before that grandma is just willing to explain anyway, whether it's someone's first time or not.
Yes, but what I'm getting at is that if it's not her first time and the grandma's just retelling the story, then it's simply just a movie moment for the audience to know the knowledge. Because the
Mhm.
grandma's not just a rambling idiot kind of thing.
Well, that's the thing. She tells stories unprompted anyway. So it feels like a story that she would say anyway because she does that earlier in the film.
I guess the best to it is Yotsuha isn't going like, "Grandma, you've told us this millions of times." Like she never says that, so
Yeah.
it kind of plays that as Yotsuma's
Yeah.
first time.
Yeah. It is Yatsuma's first time, and it's also uh, Taki's first time. Because one of the interesting things I like about that
Oh
scene,
yeah,
just jumping back a little bit to that, is that they Taki specifically asks in Muta's body, like, "Who is this person?" Like Mitagora or whatever. And that's a good, point for us as the audience because we already know Grandma explained that character to the little sister and uh, Mitsuha earlier in the film over at the making the braids. So it comes across to me like Grandma just likes to tell stories anyway. But I get why you would think it would be just a simple movie moment if it hadn't been set up that way.
yeah.
Sprinks got another one to jump to.
You know what, Bud? Looking at the rest of my notes, I think we've covered everything I have here.
All right. How about you, Crimson? Anything you want to jump to? Anything you just need to get off your chest?
I've like two more. We didn't really talk about their plan all that much.
That's true.
Uh,
Yeah.
of using the bombs to take out the power and then sending in one of them to use the speaker system to evacuate. And I think it's a decent plan considering the time frame they had to think of a plan. If I had a couple hours to think of how to evacuate my town, I would have no idea where to even begin. So I think they did a good job. Uh, and just laying the breadcrumbs, like we said earlier, with the fireworks or the explosives, setting that up earlier and everything.
Mhm.
I agree. I
The
I
think
think
broadcasting skills, I don't know if they really set that up unless I'm forgetting something, but
they say she's in the broadcasting club, but
yes.
I don't think they set it up more than just that. Uh, but yeah, I'm in agreement. I do like the plan they make. It's pretty good for putting their heads together and having to do something last minute like this. And the best they got with what they have on hand. Um, I remembered one of my points from way back in the montage. I like that it comes across to me that in the montage when Taki is like helping uh, Tensi like make the bench and park bench for them at the corner near the vending machine, turning it into their own little cafe. I quite enjoy that little bit in the montage because he at that point might know Mitsuha wants a cafe in the town, and so he's helping her with that a little bit.
yeah, yeah, I'd say so.
Nice little detail I forgot to bring up from earlier in the film. And you got a final point there, Crimson?
Yeah, and it's a personal one, and I'm going to ask if it was just me or not. When the ribbon bit on the train came into play, it completely unlocked in my brain the beginning of the movie. I totally forgot that as the opening bit, and I didn't know if that was a design purpose, like, and they did a good job making you forget, or if that was just me forgetting. uh, so I guess any similar stuff with you guys, or was it just me?
I think it was just you because throughout the movie, like when Mitsuha cuts off her hair, I go, "Oh, that's from the beginning." Thing when she has shorter hair, looking at the comet. So me, I'm that kind of cemented for me that this beginning thing wasn't a backstory of their characters that we haven't known. It's going forward and kind of the over compass of the movie, which is why it still feels off to me having it.
That scene happens before the anime opening. It's like right before it starts.
Yeah,
Um, I didn't forget about it, but I think that leading into the anime opening is what might not make it as good of a scene as it could have been at the beginning. Because I think that was a good hook. I do. And then we go into the anime opening, which I think was kind of overplaying that particular part. Because I'm fine with that being in the opening because we're already seeing a lot of events out of order anyway.
I think I would have liked it to be more minor.
Yeah, a more minor scene between them.
Yeah, not the braid, because the braid's explained over and over, and like the reveal that the braid on his wrist is her ribbon. Like as soon as Okudera has the page and going through it, and like, where do you get that bracelet? And he goes, I don't know. I just remember. It's like that plays to what we've already seen of the connection can be made there, opposed to if it was like just like a flash of her eye and cutting to like waking up in the morning of Mitsuha kind of thing. And it's like like they know of each other somewhere in their dream, but we're not watching the dream version. We're watching the, or I guess the dream we are watching because that's just the other body swap, but we're like shown or thought of like that's the dream of a connection between two people moving forward and why they're doing it, versus like given the answer and it's like then get picking up the pieces already to something we've already seen. It doesn't really have that aha moment. It's kind of taken away.
Um, okay. Yeah, I to answer your question, Crimson, I don't necessarily have an objective issue with it. Uh, I think it was a yeah, I think it was just a personal thing. I I mind
Yeah.
I don't mind the hook at the beginning, so at least that part of it. Um, and I guess if that's all, shall we move on to summaries and ratings?
Yeah.
That's it for me. Yeah.
All right, summaries and ratings it is. Um, hmm. You know what? I think I'll start.
Whoa.
Do a throw. I'll throw a
Yeah.
curveball at everybody. Yeah. Uh, and I will do an even bigger curveball. I'll do my objective first.
This is crazy. Is it
I
crazy
know,
day?
Who
right?
are you? Who swapped bodies with you?
Do you take your
I don't
crazy
know.
pills today?
I know I swapped bodies with somebody. I can't remember their name, but you know. So characters. Mitsuha and Taki are obviously the draw of the story. I think they do a great job building them efficiently as characters. I do think they don't they're fairly consistent as well throughout the film. They don't do anything drastic. Uh, at least under what I can see, because I know uh Sprinks will, in his interpretation, I think he thinks Taki's an idiot because of the "I love you" bit, which I don't know if you see that as that in his character or not, but I understand if you do.
Let me rephrase. Makes an
I,
idiotic decision, not over encompassing he is an idiot.
okay, that's fair enough. And then obviously the Crimson has the out of character bit of him fondling Mitsuha's breasts at a certain point. So I don't necessarily share those points of view for him. So I think he's a consistent character from pretty much beginning to end with how he functions. Uh, I have the same opinion of Mitsuha. I think she's really well fleshed out. Comes across as a kind of a country girl experiencing Tokyo life the first time, and that's really helped with the montage. Their chemistry as well. And for what little time they actually spend together on screen, I think comes across amazingly well. Um, I think that we didn't really talk too much about the Twilight moment outside of the ending of it. I think the reactions to seeing each other in person, I think, was very nice. And again, it just adds more to the chemistry and dynamic between them, their banter that they have in that moment before things have to get serious again. Works really well. And them being the main draw of the story and main characters, really, really good. I appreciate it. Um, Definitely high character marks from me. Outside of, I think the biggest issue for me coming out of this film for those two characters is probably a bit on Mitsuha's not getting doesn't feel fully complete with her missing her father's what she needs to say to her dad to convince him to help evacuate the town. I feel that was very important for what's been set up for her as a character, because we know that she's the opposite of Taki and being timid. So having to deal with the confrontation with her father would have been very important for her character, and I'm sad we didn't get to see it. Um, Now all the side characters, I would say mostly our tools outside of Tenshi, um, Okudera, and the grandmother and the sister. I don't remember their names off the top of my head. Um, they, while they are tools as well, they're not left to the wayside. They contribute to the story in their own ways. So they're not just tools. So in the Kenzan Tenchi, he is an important part of a subplot of the story, being the politics involved with Mitsuha's father and how he's like getting the working class to vote for him. Uh, he's also helped set up the explosives that are going to be important in the final act of the film. Um, the sister is a bit of comedic relief to bounce off of Taki being in Mitsuha's body, but is also there to help facilitate conversations that would have otherwise been just for the audience. The grandmother is she tells a lot of the history of the world, but we get additional facets attached to her character when we get Mitsuha's backstory and how important the shrine was to her and her daughter, um, and therefore the kids, because she's also obviously now the one that's living. She's the one that has the kids living with her. Um, and then we have Okudera, which is a lot of Taki's side of his life, and she contributes a lot in the way of uh, showing the difference between Mitsuha and Taki, as well as contributing a fair amount of just world building and how people outside of Taki perceive Taki when it comes down to him feeling like he's crazy, but them recognizing he's changed as a person and he's become a nicer person because of everything that's happened. And that's why they're sticking it through to help him, and that's why they stay friends even long past the Comet's endgame, pretty much. The plot is very much tied to the world building, which makes this gonna be very interesting. Because I think the plot's pacing is good, and I think most of the world building is good. And the issue that arises is the big issue that arises is how integral the plot is intertwined with the world building's magic, which we don't have a lot on. Um, we talked about what was needed and what's not, and as far as I understand, what we came to is I don't know if we agree on what was needed. At least with my what Crimson and I were having a back and forth over, what we were all having a back and forth over. Um, but what is consistent is we have some basic rules that they try to adhere to for the dream swapping and the body swapping. And this is the fateful twist. We also have the time travel mechanic, which works in a lot of quotation marks, with the Nix being the tech being conveniently just like disappearing and having it be involved in that way. With it's lucky that they didn't see like the calendar year, and there's there's a hefty amount of convenience involved in both the world building and plot as a result of how intertwined those two things are, and how disjointed is not the right word, but how the timeline of this movie is cut up. Um, and I do think that while I think there's a hefty portion of that even still that is difficult to explain away with how abstract the magic system can be and how intertwined that abstractness is uh, within the plot of the story. So I've been bouncing between two numbers. It really hasn't changed that much, but objectively, I think I'm going to settle on a 7, and it might drop to a 6.5 going forward. A 7 feels fair for now, but I can definitely reasonably see myself giving this a 6.5 objectively going into the future. Um, s- Subjectively, I really enjoyed this movie. I really loved the tone of it. I'm a sucker for urban fantasy, and I'm a sucker for romance, and this kind of is a happy marriage between the two. So hits a good soft spot for me and what I enjoy in uh, the meshing of genres. I enjoyed the romance. I enjoyed the music to the most part. Wasn't my favorite, but uh, kind of already talked about the anime opening. Um, but I'm at a solid 8. I definitely really enjoy this film. I probably will watch it again. Now that I've seen the all entirety of the Disaster trilogy, I look forward to kind of watching it in order again for the first time.
And the live
Now
action.
I no, I'm not. But go Paramount. I hope it's good. And yeah, that is my ratings. So I'm gonna pick on Crimson to go next.
Alrighty. I will start with my subjective as I tend to do. I was surprised by this because I went with the mindset of Weathering with You, and I wasn't the biggest fan of that one, if I recall. I think I gave that a 4.5 subjective. Mostly because I didn't like the characters. I did like the boss or mentor guy and the girl, but the two main characters I didn't really like,
You hated
especially
the
the
gun
guy.
scene.
Oh, I hated that thing, and that
Oh, that's
that was
such a good
probably one
scene.
of
I love
writers
it.
and mine's like most heated arguments is probably that scene.
Yeah, fun
Um,
memories for sure.
uh, so yeah, that one didn't hit me right. I did really like the visuals of that movie. That's my biggest takeaway from Weathering with You is the visuals. And coming into this, same with the visuals. I love the visuals. I think this one's even better, even though it came before. But they have a lot more to play around with, I think, in this. Uh, so visuals, I loved it. I enjoyed it. The characters, I didn't find anybody annoying. If anything, maybe the dad mayor guy, but he's supposed to be, and he wasn't like beat me over the head. I hate this guy. He was fine. He did his job. Uh, so I found enjoyment. The twist of the body swapping. It's a mild twist compared to the big one of the everyone being dead and the time travel. But I think every twist you could perceive in this were all well done and worked because I went into this blind. I didn't know anything about it. So that was really good. And in terms of their romance, I think it's cool to have a romance where the two uh, people don't really have much together at all. It's all just through leaving messages for each other and seeing the ramifications of the other's choices for themselves. It's an interesting dynamic. So I quite enjoyed it. I also gave this an 8. I know someone I want to show this to. Objectively, I my score has changed. Not drastically, but it did change. Uh, I think start with a nitpick. The sewing bit, her realizing it was the guy, nitpick. Sewing probably being against the dress code of the restaurant, nitpick. It's there. Uh, I'll just jump to it. The magic thing. Our final talk. I've sat on it, and because I'm not conclusive, I will not apply it. I feel like it would be unfair to the film to apply it if I am unsure myself. So I will treat it as a neutral. It is not a positive nor a negative. Uh, so there's that. I do think it is a little bit in uh, Tashi's character to not do the fondling thing at the end. As Ryder brought up, that is a point I pointed out, and I feel it is against his character of what we know at that point in time. Because you guys were right, he was doing it throughout the film, but we didn't have all that added stuff earlier on that was tacked on later, and I do think that should have affected him as a character of what we know of him. Uh, what else? I agree with the when we needed some explanation of how uh, Mitsuha flipped her dad, or how uh, Taki. Sorry, keep forgetting his name too. I'm like Ryder, or how Taki could have potentially set up a flip because we just cut away once the dad's like, "Who are you?" Which would have been an interesting angle too, but we don't get it. It gets cut away. The visuals beautiful, as I said. I think the voice actors for the dub did good. I think it all fit well. I like how English was sprinkled in there, like the sticky note thing that I pointed out. Um, just very good, produced piece. So I was going in with an 8.5, and I'm ending at an 8. I think it's very well done. Unlike my rating, which was sloppy and not very well done.
Look at that, Crimson giving a
Oh,
double number again.
yeah.
It's been
Uh,
a while, right? I feel like it's been
yeah.
a while.
Actually, yours is much higher than I thought it would be, to be honest. uh,
No, mine's more than just writing. I think
that's
every
that
other
that
department did very well.
that's fair, and that's very fair. I do love the animation for the film, but that's obviously is why my subjective is so high. Sprinks.
Yes, I'm gonna start with my objective, which my number did not change throughout. It after finishing the movie, it took me a moment to realize what I wanted to put it down as, but over our discussion, it has not changed from that number. I think the animation is beautiful and it's very well done and made, and that goes into the lighting choices of this film are really good. Um, and what it's depicted. I think the costume design is all believable, totally fine with the depictions of 2013 and 2016 Japan. I think they match very well. I think the dub voices overall work for every character. I think they're all pretty good. The syncing also matches up pretty well with the mouth flaps. Um, let's see the cinematography animation is always difficult for me for cinematography because not a free roaming camera kind of thing. It's set shots of what's being animated. Nothing seemed crazy to be choiced, but some very good not establishing shots, location shots. I think that they chose of showing the town or the creators, the Comet, the city life of Tokyo and the montage, and I think all the location shots really stand out. And as Crimson pointed out, he wants some for like a wallpaper or something. Um, let's see. The writing I think is fairly well and good. It's a little, it's adolescence kind of thing, so there's a little like um, choppy, like a little thing as I brought up the whole thing just getting at each other for ruining each other's lives rather than trying to figure out more of why their lives are this thing. It's kind of a little more for the comical side of these two characters. The tech thing, as Ryder pointed out, just like why that's a thing. The instance of the comet, and how that's affected the Miyagora story, which seems to only be told through the lens of the grandma, and I think a little more of that would have been good. Or the whole trigger situation with Crimson, I'm in agreement. If could have strengthened the film, but it's not needed necessarily with what we have. Um, I still think the whole not writing Taki's name on um, Mitsuha's hand is. I didn't really see a change in his character to go to that hopeless state. To me, there was nothing, zero, zip, nada, no trust, liar to her kind of moment, and I didn't think that worked. Uh, is there anything I'm leaving out? I always leave out something. I know I always do. And people are like, what about this, this, this? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't remember. But what I have written down overall is an 8.5. I think it's very well made, and deserves that, like the rewards it's got from the facts Ryder brought up. Now, my subjective. Um, after completing this movie, it made me think of three movies, not necessarily in similar vein, but like a connection. And it affected two of my ratings for those movies. And I'm not going to tell you what my ratings are or what I have those films subjectively, um, but it gives a little incentives if you want to like, ooh, let's cover that movie kind of thing. So I'll start from the bottom up. This movie, after finishing it, made me think of the movie The Lake House, and it has made me negatively move that number I had before for it down. and no, we have not covered it, but I have it as my letterbox scoring guide stuff. So my scoring for The Lake House has gone down because of this movie. My rating for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which this movie gave me similarities to, has not moved, and that's staying neutral where it's at. Um, but I think it's good, just connection of those things of the two films. And then lastly, positively, I have upped my rating of La La Land because of the connection of two lovers and how different kind of worlds affect them. Um, and it's just interesting that this one movie gave me the sense of the connection of those other ones. Don't cough through my talk. What are you doing?
Sorry, I thought I must have
It's okay.
unmuted
It's okay.
myself.
It's okay.
Not this part.
Just joking. But those three films, it's just interesting how they all shifted, or I saw connections between those and this one. And hey, if you're interested, you're like, I want to know more. Well, maybe we'll cover them in the future if you're into them, kind of thing. Anywho, but I really enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed it more than Weathering with You. It does make me question if watching Weathering with You is going to go down because they are a trilogy and they're not direct story trilogies, but they are connected worlds kind of thing. And the events, I guess, of this movie affecting the events of Weathering with You was never on my mind when watching Weathering with You because I didn't know of this one.
It's very, very loose.
Yes, but it's loose of the character connections because Mitsuha and Taki are both in Weathering with You for small cameos, but their events of what's happened in this movie is in the same world of that. So it's interesting, um, but overall, sorry to echo. I also have this at an 8.
What a
It's
fun
interesting
looking
you
graph, I imagine.
I
Or
know. It's
chart.
interesting. Look, I'm happy because I even when I gave my 7 rating, I didn't know if I was undercutting it, to be fair, and it's just kind of where my gut landed for the moment. So you guys have good. I'm happy you guys liked it so much. I guess.
Well, Ryder, I didn't know if this
Um,
was like I mean, I went in thinking you saw this movie, but first time of all three of us. I didn't know if this was going to be like a Scooby Doo thing where your name is better than Weathering with You kind of thing in the community of the films, or like how you're with like Monsters Unleashed, think not knowing if that's supposed to be better than the first one.
yeah, I had a I as far as the community is concerned, I understood what your name was more popular than Weathering with You, and people seem to enjoy Suzumi more than Weathering with You, but it's Suzumi and Weathering with You are more equivalent as far as I understand.
Okay,
Um, yeah. Uh, so yeah, I'm happy that everybody's I guess likes the film, and it's funny you brought up Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind because that I also thought of that movie while watching this, and I thought of another film that I will keep in my back pocket for now. Uh, while also watching this film. So I also made some interesting connections
oh,
uh, with it.
I take it the two of you aren't too familiar then with the Lake House or La La Land.
I have not
Uh,
seen either. I know Sandra Bullock's in Lake House.
I know of Lake House. I know of La La Land. That is it.
Okay,
um, and I guess stay tuned for my rating adjustment. I guess we'll see. um, and with that, gentlemen, shall I read us out?
think so.
Uh huh.
All right. Well, audience, thank you for listening, whether it be Spotify, Amazon, and already. Thank you, audience, for listening, whether it be Spotify, Amazon, Castbox, GoodPods, iHeartRadio, and Samsung. And if you happen to be on our visual side of things, be it YouTube or Rumble, please thank you for watching our P YouTuber side show there. Thank you for listening, and please feel free to like, comment, subscribe everywhere. Tell us how much you hate our opinions or how much you love them. As always, I've been a geeky writer,
Welcome to Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks.
and we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Toodaloo.